What's going on, everybody? I am BirdDog Jon. Thanks for joining us today, and we are going to kick things off here. It is 1 a.m. in Melbourne right now, and that is exactly where I am. Without any further ado, I'd like to welcome Robbie to the show. What's going on, man? All right, let's see. Hey, what's going on, Judson?
Hey, thanks for having me.
I do much more. We are joined with BirdDog Ian, who is at the Capture Summit over in Atlanta. So how's it going, man?
Hot and sweaty.
That's the most important question that our team can ask. Why are you needing this camera?
Now, I haven't tested this thing since it got here. This is something that I'm really excited that NDI did. That's cool. Obviously, there are lots of flavors here, but this is the 4250 line. And our little friend here. Say hello to my little friend. It's brewing in the back of my throat. Based on the recommendation of Senseless, we're going to give a Java Monster a try.
Oh, yeah, Pocky, dude.
We got a little Pocky, and
Yes.
I have been putting this off for an age.
Oh, I'm so excited for you.
There is a Snacks on Stream mystery box brought to you by my Snacks on Stream manager, Brayton. What's going on, Bugsy?
There you go. What's going on? Balu, good to see you, man.
What's going on, NetHab? Hey, what's going on, Judson? And hey, Kevin, good to see you, man. What's going on, Jeremy? How are you? Thanks for jumping on. Oh, it's all good.
Here we go!
Yep, it's that time again. Hopefully you are doing well. Howdy, everybody. I am BirdDog Jon. I want to double check. I've had to do some audio stuff here today, so I just want to double check. Whoa, that's so loud. Why is that so loud? All right, so I'm going to dial that back just slightly. It's so funny because StreamYard always starts like super loud, and then it like does something to the audio. So it doesn't appear to be like, it doesn't matter where I set it. It just always seems to be too loud. It's so weird. But the more I turn it down, then the more crushed it sounds. Like it doesn't sound like I paid a lot of money for this microphone, which is what I'm going for. But if I bring it up, then there's some compression going on or something like that. So, and it's not that loud in vMix. Yeah, I don't know what is going on. And when I record videos, it's also pretty clean. Like it doesn't sound like this. But whenever I send it out to StreamYard, then it's something's off, man. I don't know. I don't know if I should like just turn it down and talk really loud. Maybe that's what I should do. Let's see. Let's see what this sounds like. Hang on. Or like just get up on this microphone all close. There, let's put this thing right in the middle of the image and talk and see what happens. I don't know. Anyway, you guys tell me what you think. I'll make adjustments based on your recommendations, of course. Hey, what's going on? Was this who can? Is that how you say this? Because you were on Tom's show yesterday in the chat, and Eamon and Ian said your name out loud, and I was paying attention. So let me know if that's a thing. If I'm close. Is it who or ho? I can't figure it out. Who can or ho can? Who can? That sounds more Scandinavian, but I could be totally making that up. I probably am, actually. What's going on, Jeremy? Good to see you, man. Thanks for jumping back on. Yeah, I love that gig yesterday with Eamon. Yeah, that was great. It was great that they were hanging out and over there with Mr. St. Clair, who, yeah, they had lots to talk about. So it was fun to watch them interact with each other and have a good. It wasn't really that long. They were there, like he did the pre-show, which I missed part of. No one here but us chickens, says NetHab. he did the pre-show, but then the actual show only went like 20 minutes, and then they did 20 minutes of post show, like answering questions and whatever. So, um, I feel like the shows with Eamon have had to change ever since we went public. You know, we have investors and what have you, and so we have to be careful about what we talk about when what comes up, what is coming up in the future. So his line, our line is always like, "Oh, it's an interesting idea," which could or could not mean certain things. It's wide open. So there you go. Um, but yeah, it's great. It's great that they're stateside. It's good that Eamon's finally got a chance to do a little bit of traveling through the US to a lot of our friends in the States, because a lot of people know Eamon, and it's good that he's having a chance now now that the borders are open and he's not tied down so much with work. And the last time he tried to travel, he got sick, I think. And you know, when you're a guy that everyone wants to see, like you're in that high demand, it's really hard to figure out where to go first. And so I guess they started in Alabama, and he's making his plans after he hangs out with Tom. So that's pretty cool. Glad I'm glad that they prioritized the visit with Tom. It's true too. Tom is like, he's a huge bird dog fan, and he treats us way nicer than we deserve. And so it's good to have friends. I would say friends in low places, but Tom's like, he's the lead streaming idiot. So, or whatever that works. Okay, works for me. Well, I'll need to go to a trade show and shake your hand, and you can tell me how to do it correctly, and then I won't feel so self-conscious about it all the time. Hey, tell me more about the Lego model. Oh yeah. So, uh, there have been some Legos created. One moment, please. So this was a thing that Eamon did a while ago, and it's in short supply. So don't think that you can convince me to ship you one, because I'm not allowed. But they totally made a P110 120 like Lego kit, and it's pretty cool. It's a pretty cool idea, and it comes in a little bag with a little Lego instruction. It's pretty neat. And yeah, if you are some of the elite, then you might get your hands on one of those. So you have to know some people, I think. Like I said, we had them initially shipped here, which was cool, and then they've been kind of having us send them out to people. Case them. We've been slowly sending them out to people over time. So good stuff. But actually, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, Brayton has one that's being shown. So, anyways, that's the story with the Lego model. Yeah, we missed him at IBC. You missed Eamon, or Tom, or who? Probably Eamon. I don't think he was over there. Hey, they're sending one to me. Oh yeah, because you won it yesterday, right? You were also on Tom's show. So it was strange. There's a lot of familiar names over there that are regularly over here. So it's nice that I don't know if you found out about Tom's show from this channel, but I'm always sending people over there. So whatever. He's a good guy to hang out with, and he's only got one show a week, so it's if you miss it, you miss a lot. Anyway, so today, as promised in the title, we are going to hang out a little bit with BirdDogJake, and I am going to bring him on board just right now. Hey, Jake, what's going on, man?
Hey, John. How you doing, man?
Yeah.
Good to see you too.
Well, this is one of those rare moments that you are actually in your home studio.
I'm actually in the studio today. Yeah, it's been
this is what, the first time in a month and a half since you've been at your house?
I believe so, just about. I was home for maybe a couple days last week. But that's about
you
it.
maybe spent one night about a week ago there.
That's about it. No, but I'm here in the studio, and it's good to be back. So it was great being on the road, seeing a lot of BirdDog customers and users, integrators, and everyone using our gear. And it was just amazing to be able to see where this, our cameras are being placed, and converters and all this stuff. And, all these NDI workflows that are popping up all over the place.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, they're everywhere now, which is
Right.
great. We need to get out in front of it so we can calm down some of the Wild West mentality. But
Totally.
that's why we have sales engineers.
But
So
and that's what happens when you're leaders and first movers in a space. I mean,
Yeah.
we've been the first at many things. Here at BirdDog, so we gotta be able to tune that story.
yeah, it's a unique opportunity, I think. And you know, I've said this before on shows, but it's like you go to trade shows, you're going to way more than I am these days. And just talking to people about how they are fitting the technology into their like situation. Like I know
Right.
there's some production suites and whatever that are really like super high standard, latency basically has to be 0 and whatever, but they came by the booth at this year and were excited about OG4 just because they were like, actually, we could run NDI on the back end production stuff all
Easy.
day long, and we don't have to run all this expensive BNC. But for the front of house stuff, we're still going to run the BNC. It's like that's fine.
Of course.
But
I mean, that's the amazing thing about NDI and these converters, whether it's OG4 or the quads or any of the single channels, is like we're able to jump into those baseband workflows and still be a part of that production.
Right. Yeah, and add a layer of flexibility that hasn't been available since. So,
Absolutely.
yeah. Nice. Let me just pull up chat, see what's going on here. Angus is excited that they're going to ship him one of those Legos he won at
Those are so fun.
Tom's show.
I had such a
yes,
good time
David.
putting mine together.
Yeah, I haven't actually. I know there's one put together in Brayton's office. I haven't put one together. I should probably take one home for my kids. But
They're
anyways,
fun.
no, they're
I have
also
one on the back of my stand right over there.
Oh, very nice, very nice.
Top of the Rubik's Cube.
Cool stuff. Eamon asked for an unboxing video, and so we should do that live on your show. Yeah, we could do something like that. That'd be all right.
Angus, when you get yours, you should do a time lapse. Those are always fun with Legos.
Ooh, there you go. Time lapse with Legos. I like that. So I wanted to have you back on because after you were on the last time, we had a lot of people that had questions about Cloud 3.0, about just some other stuff. Now we did like a highlight show a couple of weeks ago, probably about a month ago now.
Yep.
We did a show of basic like Cloud highlights. But for those of you who have been playing the game long enough, you know that Jake does a lot of our workflows that involve Cloud fairly heavily. And so, to talk about have Jake on a show and say, hey, for 45 minutes, I want you to talk about everything Cloud is kind of a loaded question because there's a lot to talk about. But some of the stuff that came up fairly regularly after that show was a conversation about, just even about like getting started, doing like installing the trial and understanding like, we used to do something with like license keys and now it's activation codes and there's a few other things. So kind of just explaining even like pricing model, what, in what situation does it make sense to get an annual license over like something else or whatever. So maybe today will be more of just like basic functionality, basic like getting it lit up and
let's do that, because I am working on a suite of new Cloud Byte videos that are going to be little chunks of how to set up your trial account, how to jump in, how to log in, how to create connections, what are the different SRT types, and a few of those things that we can go over today, because I'd like to go through with this as much as possible. But guys, whenever there are questions, please send them to John, please send them to me, send them over to hello and help at birddog.tv, because we want to make sure that your questions are answered, and if we can do it in video, we're more than happy to. So
yeah, for sure. I mean, that's the primary function of the show is that, right? Is like just to demonstrate how it works and show you in real time how it goes. So
and like last time I wanted to show DX, which is really important to Cloud 3. So I have that running now on our side. So that'd be great. And then John, do you actually have a BirdDog Cloud endpoint online or Cloud 3.0 installed on your end?
I can. Yeah. 1 second. Just give me a second here. Yeah. All right. So
I don't know if you have that yet.
It wasn't on It's gonna top out my CPU usage. Hang on.
Oh, I see the support office now. Cool.
Yeah, there it is.
So we don't have to send any sources over to it. I just wanted to make sure you have one online so we can send stuff back and forth.
Yeah, it should be there. And I'm trying to remember. I need to look in there and see what sources are available because I've grouped things off and I've done some stuff here to kind of guard some of the studio. But yeah, you can throw it up there as a source anyways. It's fine.
Yeah, no worries. I was just curious.
Cool. Jeremy has just right out of the gates. We need to add this to the to-do list.
Yeah.
But he has said, "Hey, can you guys go through the SRT DVR in cloud conversation?"
So just right off the bat, we specifically don't have a recording endpoint in the cloud. You theoretically can set up, an AWS or any instance in the cloud and have that be a cloud endpoint and then send your feeds over that way and do a workflow solution up there. But currently BirdDog does not have a cloud recording DVR option.
Yeah, so the cloud endpoints will record locally, right? Like you can still set the path like you could in the previous.
Yep. Or network paths too.
Curious, does that get re-encoded into NDI and then recorded, or is that the SRT stream being recorded?
So it is the SRT stream being recorded. If you jump into the local recording modules inside Cloud, and I'll share that on my screen in a moment. In Cloud 2.0, we did have a recorder module. I think that's still being ported over. And what that will do is that'll actually initiate the NDI MOV recording on each end. I don't believe that was ported over to Cloud 3 yet, so that's something I can triple check. But the ability to record the compressed transmit stream is there. So theoretically, you could do that with an AWS cloud instance and have that be just local recordings.
Cool. Okay. Yeah, that's cool. So how do you want to do this? Do you want to join StreamYard again on a separate?
So I was going to do that, but screen capture on my laptop wasn't working. So I'm just going to pop over to screen capture on my side, and then we'll just do it kind of how we did last time.
Sounds good.
Cool. So let's see if this pops over. Oh, I think I froze there. Let's see.
No, I still see you. I want to highlight you here. Ah, there we go. Oh, this is.
Let's see. We got screen capture up?
Yes.
Awesome. So we have BirdDog Cloud, right? On the left-hand side, we have all of our endpoints that are currently online inside of our company account. So I have my BirdDog laptop. I have this DX endpoint, which is a cloud instance in California. Minoy and the lab are guys over in Australia. And then it looks like we have Robbie's work laptop and UK demo online as well. So we can clearly see that we have all of our global accounts tied under one roof. And in any one of these, we can jump in to see if anyone has an active connection. So right now, I'm currently sending something up to my DX in California. Minoy has a bunch of cloud connections heading over to some custom groups, which I'll jump into today, and I'll show you some really cool stuff that we've been setting up on our end about that. But let's just start off basic, John, and everyone. Essentially, we can look at BirdDog Cloud endpoints in two ways, right? We can either accept an incoming connection, right? So we're receiving something onto our endpoint, or we can initiate an outgoing connection, right? So we're sending something from our endpoint to a specific location. Now, in both of those options, those can be BirdDog Cloud endpoints. Those can be SRT regular endpoints. So you can hit any of the 500 plus Alliance members of SRT to jump in. So let's jump over to Monterey, right? Because that's where I am right now. I'm currently sending a stream over to DX California, right? So if I pop
So-
over to DX, yeah,
Just so people know a little bit here, and let me try and go back this. Just so people. So DX, when you say DX, what's the difference there between that and what we're used to in cloud so far?
so in DX, this is our cloud instance. It's essentially a pseudo SRT turn server. It's a way for us to send our SRT data packets to one location that's open in the internet. And the reason that we developed this is because SRT requires at least one port open on one end, right, to initiate
Right.
the handshake between the two sites. What this allows us to do is essentially place an SRT gateway in the cloud, which will act as the handshakes, because if you're in a corporate environment or a production studio that the IT department says you can't have any open ports, even if you set them up yourself or whatever it is, you guys don't have access to that security. So having this SRT gateway in the cloud allows you to have that outbound access that you still already have to initiate this SRT handshake together.
So, and again, just to simplify some terms here, so
Yeah.
like things like turn servers, that's like, can you give a little bit of detail as to like where we've been with that sort of thing? What in general they are, so that when you say a phrase like turn,
Sure.
people know what you're talking about and where it's
So-
going. And
So essentially, on both sides, or whenever we're trying to access the internet, whether we're going to YouTube or we're going to Google or we're going somewhere, there has to be, a handshake and a connection path to the server that's streaming what's going on, right?
Right.
So these turn servers are units essentially outside of the network, outside in, the globe or wherever you're connecting to allow those handshakes to kind of happen. So that didn't necessarily exist with SRT. So what we were able to do is essentially spin up an instance in the cloud, provider of your choice, and be able to have this connection between both sites.
now is BirdDog hosting their own turn servers now?
For our Cloud Connect modules, we are. For DX, I do not believe that's the case. That's something that still needs to be spun up.
Okay.
I'll triple check about that and stuff. But no, we are hosting. You can essentially purchase bandwidth through BirdDog Cloud, so you don't have to spin up your own server.
Right.
And that is hosted by Google Cloud Pixel, or Google Pixel Cloud rather.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll let you jump back to it.
Yeah, no worries. So we have, if we jump back over to Monterey, we'll see I have my outgoing connection. I can right click and I can show details. So these are the current details of the connection right now. So we can see up at the top, I have my endpoint Monterey at my IP address, hitting a US West endpoint, which we've named DX California. That port connection info. So the SRT port that's going from my connection to the other end, and then our SRT stats. So looks like we've been running for 21 minutes or so, right? About 1.5 gigabytes upload. And we can see our bitrate management is about a little bit under 10 megabits per second. The incredible thing that I found about using DX is that we have minimal packet loss. So I'm running at 23 minutes or 21 minutes so far, and I have 0% lost packets. A couple resent packets, but nothing was lost in transmission.
Yeah, that's pretty incredible that you can run it at that length of time and still get the
And
quality
barely
that you
have-
get. And yeah, not drop a
Exactly.
single frame. Yeah,
It's kind of insane. I mean, from what I've just noticed in my tests from hopping around my laptop, around the country, is that like access to the data servers and the data centers have like priority traffic through the ISP. So it ends up being, a pretty robust connection to use this as a loop through.
Yeah. And NetHab, just to kind of follow up here too. So the idea is that you'd have one endpoint per quote office or location around the world.
Yes.
Yeah. In theory, I mean, we'll get into the pricing structure and whatever, and how that is supposed to work and how, flexible it is. But yeah, essentially, if you have various remote source, like places that you would consider remote, but you're doing video at these locations, and
Mhm.
bring those all back to a centralized production studio. And so you're cutting the costs of even just the physical costs of having time and equipment and buildings and cabling and all that stuff in all these different locations. Now you can literally make a freight base of a laptop and a camera and or two,
Right.
and just ship that stuff over. So yeah, it's getting the requirements to do robust and around the world type of productions. The overhead on it is getting really low. So that's you'll notice all of the things kind of moving towards that end goal as he kind of talks through connections. What have you?
Exactly. Hey, John, can we try to see if I can pull your camera over to my
Yeah,
side?
sure.
Because I have a pretty good download speed, and that's something also to consider about a cloud is your ISP bandwidth settings. So since I am already uploading 10 megabits to California, I'm using up maybe half or a quarter of my available bandwidth. So just things to keep in mind when setting up connections. So for John's, we're going to do an outgoing connection, right? So we'll jump over here because we're sending something from his studio over to mine. We have a couple different connection types in here. I mean, the first one is RTMP. So realistically, we can send our NDI sources from John's office. So here's his BF120. There's the BirdDog calendar in their
The
office.
Studio P200 is the one you're looking for.
Studio P200, right?
Yep.
If we're sending that over to YouTube or wherever your RTMP destination is, you can do that right here and right through cloud. The next option, what we're going to do is this is our cloud endpoint to endpoint connections over SRT. So that's why we have a little BirdDog Cloud icon, and then that's why we have our SRT icon as well. So this is the endpoint to endpoint connection everyone from Cloud 2.0 would know already. So we said that it's that Studio P200. So we're going to make sure that that's checked. And then the first thing we want to do is select the target endpoint. So currently, these are all my endpoints that are online. So I can send this over to my Monterey endpoint. I could send this over to the UK at Robbie's work laptop or down to Australia. But I want to see John's camera, so I'm going to send that my way. We auto scale the ports. So I'm already using 5556. And so we jump up to the next one, which is 5557. Currently only going to be sending a single stream. I can send multiple streams on the same connection with a multi-stream or even creating a multi-view. Call this John's P200. And this next checkbox is really important. So this is the NDI metadata. So your PTZ, your tally, we want to make sure that that's checked so that if you want to send control through the link, you have that option. Encoder profiles, this is where you're going to have your FFmpeg flags to do the transport stream configurations. Right now, we don't have any set up, so I'm going to do a default. And actually, John, it might be good for us to jump in and do a configuration setup for like
for sure.
5 megabits or something. So we'll jump into that too. We can include the alpha channel by selecting that here. We also have video decoder options. So if I know that on the receiving end, I wanted to use my NVIDIA card rather than using software CPU decoding, I can automatically select that below, but I'm going to leave it on auto. Timecode handling. This is an interesting one. So NDI timecodes and timestamps are two different ways of recording time code. And it's all up to the manufacturer of how they adhere to that standard, because there are two different methods. By default, I believe we use time code. That can be changed inside your cloud settings. But this third option, generated, this one's particularly important. This will create a new time code upon the creation of the stream. So that way everything is kind of synced with this BirdDog Cloud endpoint, rather than using timestamps or time codes from the NDI source. That particularly becomes useful in Adobe Premiere outputs, sources that you can stop and scrub and whatnot, just so that way we can keep that time code still going. Failover source. This one's also really important. So now that I have my target endpoint selected, I have all of my available sources here on the left. I mean, the right, excuse me. So what I can do here is I can move one of my local sources. Let's just take this, this camera's video, drag and drop that over to my failover source. So let's say John's connection disappears, you know, the internet gets wiped out. What this will do is, if that connection is interrupted, this will fail over to my local source. So that way the shot is, if it's still live, it gets cut over to something you can fail over to. Very, very useful in live productions. And then for Jeremy's question, for recording the streams, you can choose to record this at the source endpoint or choose to record it at the target endpoint, or both. And that's going to be the recorded encoded profile that's selected.
And that's probably going to take additional CPU or GPU to do.
It will. And potentially network bandwidth if you're pushing it out to a NAS or something like that. This next window is also important. This is where we go ahead and select our SRT connection type. So this is that port forwarding business that we have to deal with in cloud. So caller listener, right? A caller is a location that has their public IP. I'm sorry, the listener has their public IP open. So the caller needs to know the URL and the public IP and port number of that listener. So the listener essentially has their gates open at 5556, 5557, and I'm calling out to that IP at that port. So the exciting thing about SRT is it can be either or. So whichever endpoint has that port open, you can select caller listener or listener caller. So we're going to do caller listener because I have, John, I believe you have your ports open on your side.
They should be, yeah.
And if they're not, we can always.
And I was like, oh, I need to double check that, I guess.
Well, if it wasn't open, we just go back in and flip it over to listener caller. So let's just try out this connection. So we had a little spinning icon and then we got the link, right? So now I'm going to pull up Studio Monitor on my side. So we can see we have that little thumbnail of John. So that's actually created by his endpoint. Some
also hear my CPU endpoint firing up here on the stream machine.
I see that happening too. So let's see. Awesome. So here we go, guys. So we'll pull this over, right? Here's my NDI Studio Monitor and all of my many NDI sources in my studio. My master PC is my cloud production computer. So now I can see I have John P200 over here, and I have John in my studio.
There I am, live for the world to see. And do we want to do a side-by-side as to like my StreamYard shot to the
let's also look at that. We have Tally going now too, right?
Oh, that's cool, yeah.
Right, because he's about to pull that in. And then we got that.
That's pretty neat. Now you can steer, yeah, you can steer the ship here too, right? Yep.
But something that you could just see with that connection right there, my data connection feed over is pretty instantaneous.
Yep.
And then that SRT feed is still coming a little bit later, right?
Yep. Because it's got to come from you back to you. So doing a full round trip for those commands, whereas the control commands are just one way.
Right. So let's just look at these stats right now. Let's see. And then I'll pull you back up. So we have about an 88 millisecond round trip time. That's not bad from California to Michigan.
No, seriously, that's good.
That's pretty good. I mean, as we can just see, we have about 3% packet loss right now. However, because SRT has error correction built into it, those packets just get resent and built together on the other side. So I still have my clean image.
Yeah, it's amazing that it's like as smooth as thing here.
Oh, it's super smooth.
P200 is going into my system, going out through my ISP.
Yep.
It's being converted to SRT on this machine, which is also running this show and outputting NDI. And then that's going over to Jake on the other side of the country.
Yep.
And then his screen is connected to StreamYard, which is also going up to the cloud. So there's a little bit of a delay, but the amount of stuff that's going on here, and it does not appear that we're dropping any frames here. Like that, we're not stuttering or skipping or doing whatever, which is unbelievable.
It's pretty incredible, right?
Yeah.
And then we're going through my switches and my ports and my production computer and all that stuff too. So it's pretty exciting. So actually, there's something else that I want to test out here now too. So Cloud Connect, right? So that's our ultra low latency NDI streaming to our apps, right? So our iPhones, Apple TV, Android TV, or back to cloud endpoints. So what I want to do here is we're going to do the same feed, right? We're going to do Jon's P200. Right, we'll take that studio. We're actually going to send it to a Cloud Connect group right now. So let's send it over to Monterey, right? And we'll still call this Jon P200. This time we'll call it CC, so we know it's Cloud Connect. This time we're going to be doing, this is Cloud Connect is based on WebRTC, so which allows us to get ultra low latency transmission anywhere in the world. So in this case, we already have predefined codecs. So using H.264 with software or graphics card enabled, or VP8 or VP9 codecs. So what we'll do in this scenario, we're going to, instead of sending it directly to me, I'm going to push this up to my Cloud Connect group called Monterey. So we have that link icon below. And so what we'll do now is we'll jump into our Cloud Connect dropdown. So Jon, this is why I wanted you to send me some screenshots before. So I've been adding a bunch of Cloud Connect groups so that all of the guys and everyone here at BirdDog can essentially push their feeds to specific groups. And what better way to show that this is a global connected company and production workflow than having all the places where we're from. So it's great to see, CJ in Texas and Melbourne and Monty's New Mexico double rainbow, pretty exciting stuff. So they're password protected, right? Because we want to make sure that if you share this link out to your production team, only the production team gets in. So we'll jump into mine, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You have custom URL options for the end tag. So I have this labeled as /CloudConnect/Monterey. So I can send that off to anyone in the world. And as long as they have the password to log in, they'll be able to see the streams. So I have 2 streams going here right now. Let's click Jon's. There he is. Oh, Here we go.
All right, I'm running at about 95% on my CPU right now. So.
That'll do it.
Yeah.
So let's pop on over. Yep,
Yeah, you
92%.
You definitely see my CPU. He's just humming along there.
It is. That'll definitely happen. Let's see. There we go.
Yeah.
Can I see the latency between these two?
Sure.
I'm kind of curious. There we go.
Thinking fast.
So compared to what we had before, that's almost instantaneous.
Yeah, that's very low latency. Oh, that's crazy.
So maybe if your CPU wasn't chugging along and trying to run Streamlabs and vMix and Cloud and all this stuff, that's why it's important to have, the right production computers and tools and have specific, computers for the right job.
Let me lower the requirement here for this machine. That should help out significantly. I'm down to like, oh, well, never mind.
It did clean up a little bit.
It's not doing anything else other than vMix, but it's running like 6 sources. So
right.
There's a fair bit going on.
So a fun production workflow that I like to use with Cloud Connect. We also send that control data through.
Yeah.
So let's see. Oh, just a quickie. So I'm still locked onto my BirdDog Jon source, right, from my initial connection.
Yeah.
But because I ended the stream or stopped it, it actually failed over to my local source.
Boom. There you go.
Right.
So if you stop the source inside Cloud,
because that connection is still
failover.
going. It'll convert to the failover.
Yeah. There's no data being transferred because it's actually been stopped. But in order to not lose the channel, it is
exactly.
It's retransmitting a signal. That's cool.
So here's another fun thing that we can do. I'm going to jump back over to my connections. And so I stopped that connection from Jon. But what I'll do now is I want an incoming stream, right? So I want to pull something from a Cloud Connect group. So let's see. Is your feed still there?
My CPU dropped to 40%. So maybe not.
Maybe not. We'll stop that and start it back up again. Because I wanted to pull it down into
there.
My office. There it is. We'll leave the display name as the same.
So this is like, I mean, you can connect a whole bunch of stuff up over WebRTC.
Yep.
And pull it down to wherever you want. It's basically all going up to like a unified server platform. And then you pull down what you need basically as you need it. So while Jake sets that up, let me just clean up the chat here real quick. What's going on, iPhone? Good to see you, man. Is it similar to NDI Bridge? Kind of. There's a fair bit more that's offered here with BirdDog Cloud than just with Bridge, and we'll continue to go into some of that. So, and hey, what's going on, Go Web? Good to see you. So the question is, hey, I missed the start. I'm a newbie. How can we get a live feed from another location to our main studio? What's required? What is required for each end of the conversation? So you need endpoint. You need an endpoint on both sides. We're not at a place yet where we have SRT natively on the device, which is something that was announced with Silicon 2. But as of right now, you need basically an endpoint at both sides, and then for the most part, an open connection to the internet, to the external internet. We operate over specific ports, but you can change those ports to what you need them to be. But by default, these ones are 5555, and then through. Generally, if you're going to open ports for the service, and it's not like a super lockdown secure operation, then you can open 5555 to 5565, and that gives you 10 ports to kind of work with. But each connection requires a port. And so, as maybe you saw, I don't know if you did, but when he made a connection to mine, he already had one going. And so it was 5556 was the one that he was using. And so mine automatically went to 5557, which is fine because it's open here and open on his side as well. So that was no issue. What is there is no public IP at either end. So two things.
So in that,
public,
yeah,
the public IP thing is more so if you need to specify. So Cloud should do the IP stuff for you.
Yes,
you shouldn't have to customize that.
That's the great thing about the SRT Cloud endpoints is that we already have the connection to your public IP or the DNS,
right?
What is it, the DDNS or whatever you guys put in for your IP. But if you're doing a regular SRT connection, that's when you actually can, put in the host name. There it is. Right.
Right. Yeah.
So if you are a caller, you need to specify the host name that you're calling out to. If
straight
you're a
up
listener,
SRT.
If you're a listener, your IP is open, and you just have to specify the port that you're, allowing the floodgates through.
Right. Yeah. So they've given you a whole bunch of options as to how it is that you can connect. And it's way more than it was like if you were with us with Cloud 1.0 or even the beginning of 2.0. We've got some like more versatility in terms of how you can get things in to actually up to the cloud and then how to pull them down. Connection stuff is going to be specific for like how you're going to do it. So if it's just SRT sources or whatever, or if you're going to be using the endpoints, the BirdDog Cloud stuff, it all has its own setup. And this is probably something that Jake and CJ will work on and myself will work on to kind of demonstrate in video. So, okay, we're going to use an SRT connection, yada, 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 and show kind of generally how that's done.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that's you shouldn't need to do the public IP or the caller listener, the BirdDog Cloud SRT connection. If for most, let's say for easier installations or non-complex installations, Cloud Endpoint should handle all of that for you because it'll pull that information when you're setting up the connection. Since this says watching John is. I heard somebody giggling out in the lobby, so it's probably him. Including water in your thumbnail is now a requirement. That's because pretty much had water on all of them. Most of the places we live are close to bodies of water, I think, other than Monty.
Yeah, we have to balance out the desert.
I like the new BirdDog Cloud UI. Me too. I think
it's super straightforward. It makes a lot more sense in just getting connections in and out. The matrix does, that does work, and it's definitely a good way to look at it. But we all feel that it makes sense to have, let's say, is a source incoming to my space or is a source outcoming from my space? And being able to group those, specifically is, relatively important.
Yeah, and it's the matrix is still available, right? Like you can still switch to the matrix.
I believe it's still being built right now.
Okay.
I think it is. I think it is coming. But we did want to make sure that at least the initial release got out there and whatnot.
For sure. So Facebook user says, "Oh, this is pretty cool," and GoWeb says, "Yeah, fingers crossed on John's PC." We're all feeling that way. Probably should get him. Well, I run StreamYard on a Mac because I wasn't convinced that this little computer that was running vMix was going to be able to handle both. And initially, when I was doing both, it was kind of a crapshoot between whether or not it was actually going to work or not. So I split the load. But then when you fire up Cloud endpoints and you start doing a bunch of other stuff, then it gets a little dicey.
Like, oh, wait a minute.
Yeah, he stopped his connections, and so I'm at like 42% right now. But this little machine is not super powerful, and so yeah, we're when we do a bunch of stuff on it, then that's definitely. How many NDI inputs are on your vMix? vMix NDI inputs are ridiculously heavy CPU. Yeah. So what I did to lighten the load was I have 5 cameras and a desktop capture, which is actually just cam control, or I'm sorry, scan converter. But I turned them all to low bandwidth except for the P200, and that seems to have alleviated some of the requirement. Okay, so we can go back to the show. That's the end of the comments, so we can get back here to you, Jake.
I'm just pulling up, let's see, my Apple TV real quick. See if I have that source still going.
Now, is there still a free? There's still a free trial on the page, right, where you can sign up
for BirdDog Cloud?
Yes.
Yes, there is actually. If you guys go to BirdDog.cloud, which is an incredible URL,
that's way cooler.
This is where you're going to go and sign up. If you go ahead and click Try Now, actually, you should get a sign up page because I'm already logged in. It doesn't give me that. But from there, you'll be able to either migrate from your existing cloud account from 2.0 or start a brand new trial. Personally, I recommend that everyone start a new trial because once you migrate from 2 to 3, you can't go back. But if you start up a whole new trial, eventually on the back end, once you realize that everything's set that you need for your production, we can go ahead and add those licenses manually.
Yeah, and I need to jump in here and just say we do know that the Dante integration that's a part of BirdDog Cloud 2.0 is not in 3.0 yet. So if you're using that, you can either set up a new account and try out Cloud 3, but the Dante piece won't come over. And so we're still kind of waiting to hear from engineering on some of that stuff. And then maybe Jake, you know more than I do on that, but that's latest I heard was we're still waiting to kind of bring that over. Mostly because
that's still in the works.
Yeah,
so
we're working with outside companies to make that happen. So
exactly.
If you're using, there's only a few folks that are using the actual Dante licenses inside of Cloud 2. If you are, you should probably set up a new account with Cloud 3, and they're different licensing servers anyway, so it's all good. Set up a trial with Cloud 3, test it out, see what you think. Ask your questions, and then after that, and once we figure out what's going on with Dante. But that way you don't lose the functionality that you currently have with 2.0. But that's just one of those gotchas type of thing. All right, so let's go ahead. Sorry.
No, it's all good. I actually realized that my Cloud Connect service was not initiated on my new Apple TV because we had a few updates. So I wanted to kind of show you guys what's actually happening. Cool. So once you download the BirdDog Cloud app on Apple TV, you can add some endpoints in over here. So what we'll do, we don't want to exit. Let's see. We'll scroll up. We'll add a new service. And then I'll go over to that address on my computer to input my API key. So this is how we attach our API from your BirdDog Cloud account over to the specific Apple TV. So I'll pop over to, let's see. I think we moved some of this stuff around. Cloud Connect tokens. Here we go. So I have my BirdDogJake Cloud Connect apps. I'll go over to this. I could either use a QR code to scan it if I'm using an iPhone or an Android to pull that in. But in this case, I need to copy and paste my code for my API key for my Apple TV. So we have success there. We'll go back to my studio, over to the top and click OK. So now I've joined BirdDog Australia. So that was probably the first one. So we'll go over to the second one. And there are all the groups that I had earlier.
That's pretty cool.
Right. So if we were sending streams to the Auburn Hills group, I'd be able to jump into there. I have the password. There's my Monterey. We got to get Ian to add some Yuba City Treeline Mountain pictures over.
So can you give a couple of like use case scenarios here where the Apple TV app will where you think as a sales engineer guy where it will really shine for the industry?
Sure. So this is going to be perfect in those post-production workflows. So there's a lot of NDI floating around networks now, right? Specifically Adobe Premiere and Avid outputs, right? So those are NDI streams on the network. And for post-production editorial review and approval solutions, what better way to approve of the cut than at home in your home theater or in your studio or wherever the Apple TV, is plugged into. So that way you can be in the studio, you can be in the, in your approved space and be able to see your edit happening live in real time with your team.
Yeah, and so much of this is about workflow and just like convenience of workflow, right? So I love that idea.
Right? Like how great would it be to sit in your home theater, and have your speaker system and being able to see your edit happening. Pretty incredible stuff. Or let's say you're doing a live production broadcast shoot, right? And the team needs to be able to see, a multi-view of the sources that are live and in real time. Cloud Connect with that low latency that we saw before, John, lets that happen. It lets your before we dubbed it Cloud Connect, I was using this. It was just dubbed WebRTC connections inside Cloud 2.0. And being able to do a commercial shoot when you have, like, let's say a lighting director in Toronto and the set designer in New York, but the shoot's happening in Atlanta. So everyone needs that real-time, instantaneous view of the streams that are happening to be able to tune their production to what they need it to be, And
now, when you click on, like, if you click on one of these, you can go in and see what, like, the streams that are connected with Cloud Connect. You can
exactly. So if I jumped into this one before, there's your P200.
Yeah.
And there we go.
Wow. Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah, really cool.
It's really cool stuff. You get PTZ control in this too.
Oh, nice.
Let me see if I can scroll over to it.
Is it like with the Apple TV remote that you're manipulating that?
With the Apple TV.
Oh, that's crazy.
Yeah, it's really fun. But I don't believe I have it enabled on this connection, or I can't scroll over to it. So we'll do that.
Web asked a good question. Do they need separate licenses for both endpoints?
You can use the same subscription token if it has two activations attached to it. So you can have one code for both sites, or you can have one code for each site.
So I know that the model changed, and for those of you who have been following along here, Cloud 1 and 2, we were issuing licenses, like keys basically that enabled you to you put a key on an endpoint, and then that was the way that it was attached to your company. Well, then we switched to activation codes, but what we were still using the key structure for, not really for any real good purpose at that point, but using the key structure, but you only needed one key for the company basically, and then you added activation codes to that. So now what is the structure like with Cloud 3?
So with Cloud 3, you'll have something called subscriptions and subscription codes. Once you receive the subscription code online from purchase or through your BirdDog dealer, what you'll do is you'll copy and paste that code and put them into the subscription codes. So we'll add that over here. And then when it's available, you'll see that it'll be green on this side. And what you'll be able to do is drag and drop from one to the next. Actually, let me just pull up another Chrome window so I can spin up a new one.
Is there a store inside of Cloud as well? Like I thought you could buy the license.
There is. So if we jump into shop, we have all of our BirdDog packages, right?
So now they're automatically linked to the account that you're buying them from. Instead
Correct.
of going to the dealer and getting a code and having it emailed to you and then putting it in, if you buy them here, they get linked to the account that you buy them.
Yep.
So it's way less. It's way less work.
It is
a lot more convenient. Okay, sorry. Go ahead.
No, it's all good. So let's see. I'm just creating a new code on my back end just to show with you guys what that's like. So we have 365-day subscription, 30-day subscription, and data packages for the turn servers if you use our BirdDog turn server service.
A cool thing too about that is the turn service information is available in real time inside BirdDog Cloud. So if you buy turn service, like a turn service package, you can actually monitor how much you're using. And there's a redundancy thing where you can set it up to purchase more. Like when you reach a threshold, it purchases another data package, and you can set it up to where it only does it once. Because like if somebody connects to the turn server and starts like chewing through all your data, you don't want it to be like constantly repeating. So you can say renew one time, but then like one time a day or one time a whatever. You renew once, but then it caps out, and then you're not charged like crazy. You're only charged whatever your renewal package was, which was like $80 or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. And you get to select which data package you need for that recurring auto top off. Looks like we didn't have an auto top off, but it did look like we sent Pav an email a couple days ago saying, hey, you know, it's, you guys are running low.
Running low on data. Yep.
So what I'll do over here is I have my subscription code copied and pasted. So I'll throw that in over here. So one code was found. So we just added that in here. So now I have my green BirdDog Cloud subscription that I can drag and drop over, right? So now that this code is available, I'll be able to place it down over here and we can create a subscription. So this will attach that code into my available account. So right now, I have a max of 10. 5 are being used right now. So we'll pop on over to our connections.
How do people get to that subscription management? Is it just that button there at the top?
It is. So the buttons at the top change depending on the last selected thing that you were in. So to get there, you'll go into your company drop down, and then down at the bottom would be subscription management.
Perfect.
Right. And then we show Reporter, Cloud Connect, all those instances.
Yeah.
So we'll pop back over to our endpoints. What I'll do right here is I'm going to yield my subscription, right? And I'll push it back over to a trial account. So let's say now I do buy that license and I do have that in my account, or my dealer hands it to me, or the reseller. I can jump over here and assume subscription. So now I know that endpoint is available, not on trial, doesn't have a watermark. I can stream.
So this is a way to manage subscriptions across multiple endpoints without needing them all to be active all the time.
Correct.
So you can say like, I want to have two connections, but I have 6 remote locations, but we're never going to use them all at the same time. We're only ever going to use 2.
Exactly.
So you just buy 2 licenses and activate the endpoints as you need them, instead of needing to activate an endpoint that's on for 365 days.
Yep.
Yeah, that's cool. I mean, that's convenient for the customer. BirdDog's not going to make as much money as they used to, but
it's about facilitating these workflow solutions. So like, let's say you do have like 3 or 4 production laptops that are acting as your BirdDog NDI gateways. Being able to just, I mean, live shows get pretty crazy, and if you need to swap over to another computer really fast, to not have to worry about licenses and just being able to be streaming with a couple clicks
Right.
is incredibly, advantageous. You need as much time as you can get in a live production scenario. So we don't want to slow that down.
You generally have to have a contingency plan, right? So it's super convenient. You can do it
Usually
all
too.
Yeah.
I mean, hey, last time I was on the stream, my keyboard and mouse died. So even having backups of that get really important.
Yep. On that subscription, Kevin has a good question. He says, any way of paying like a pay-per-use license or less than just like the full year? You can see that these ones that Jake is talking about are perpetual licenses. I guess so. Just to answer that question, but
yep.
What are the purchase options? Are they just annual licenses, or what do you got?
We have annual and 30-day options. I believe we also have a 7-day weekly activation, but I just don't believe it was put in the shop yet.
Yeah, I don't know if it was in the shop and they removed it or what, but yeah, you can do like a 1-month deal, which is $30. I mean, that's for what it is. That's pretty great. And that gives you 30 days. It's $1 a day, isn't it?
Yep. Yeah, it gives you 2 Cloud Connect subscriptions, and it's 1 core license. So yeah,
it doesn't require you to pay for the full year if you're only going to use it like 2 months of the year. That's $60 instead of the full license.
Exactly. So if you're sending from one site to another site, you'd get 2 of these better production packages for 30 days, and then you'd be set for 60 to go in between both sites.
Now, when you buy them, do they start on that day, or do they start the day you activate them, or how do you know?
99% sure they start the day that you activate and assume the subscription.
Okay.
But that's something I can triple check for all of us.
Yeah, we could hang down on that too.
Yep. So let's see, what are the exciting things over here? There's a lot to cloud, clearly.
Yeah, it just kind of keeps going, Like there's so many corners that it's ridiculous.
It really is. And then the whole reporter application is pretty great too. Let me see if I have that installed. Oh, I do.
Yeah. Can you give us a brief overview as to what reporter is and what, where does it fit in the cloud game?
I can. So BirdDog Cloud Reporter is an instance of a cloud endpoint for remote commentary, for an easy solution for sending and receiving feeds directly in a little 2-box window, for pulling in remote guests. And it's all managed by the engineer using BirdDog Cloud. So the end user, all they have to do is install BirdDog Cloud Reporter, put in their special code, and their laptop, their computer is attached to your BirdDog company account. So let's show you guys how exciting this is. So I'm going to create an outgoing connection for this reporter, right? So here, we'll actually disconnect it over here, and we'll start fresh. So I have to input my connect code. I'll pop on over to my company, jump into my reporters tab, and here is my Monterey reporter. So I'll copy my connect code.
Now, is this where you create codes as well on that screen?
It is. So if I wanted to invite someone else, if I wanted to send John reporter, right? I can go ahead, save that. And now I would just forward this code over to John after he installs reporter. And then his webcam, his audio device, all of his production USB inputs are available for me to select. And I'll show you guys that right now. So I'll copy and paste my code. Now I'm connected to the company. And the reason for this is, let's say you're hopping around and you have a couple of productions that are using BirdDog Cloud. to be able to jump in and do all that stuff here. So there's not a lot to do on this main page, right? It's because the engineer takes care of all of that for you. So if I jump over to my Monterey reporter and I want to do an outgoing connection, I can choose if I want this to be an SRT output or an ultra low latency cloud connect output. Or I could even send my outgoing connection to a vMix instance that's running an SRT input, right? We give you guys a lot of options. So what I'll do is I'm going to send this over to my production computer just to make it easy. But on the left-hand side, these are all my audio devices of my reporter. So I have a Dante virtual sound card. I can select my microphone. vMix also presents some audio output buses and whatnot. So if I go ahead and selected, let's say my DVS, and then down below, I have my video device. So these are all my USB or broadcast webcam inputs that are available on my computer. So being able to, if this was a Mac, I'd be able to select the FaceTime camera. If I plugged a USB webcam into it or any of the BirdDog cameras with a USB output, those would show up here as well. I'm going to use my vMix video because that gives a couple of video bars when not displayed. I can jump in and select the resolution and frame rate and pixel format. So if I go ahead and press connect, that connection is starting to spin up over here. And that's my outgoing connection. So this is being sent to my BirdDog endpoint. So I could pull up another screen over here. I can jump in. I could see that port number that this is coming through at. And now I have my remote commentator coming in right into NDI onto my side.
That's cool.
Let's see if I can flip it over to my NDI webcam. So if I put this as my P100 and I do webcam 2 and save this. Oh, I selected the audio. We want to do video. Interesting. Could not open device. I haven't seen that one before. Interesting.
Yeah, that's a weird one.
Yeah, that's an NDI webcam problem. So if I had a pod over here, that would show up as a UVC source as well.
Now you were just over at Zoomtopia with Dan and Eamon for a few days, right?
I was.
And
that was a great time.
I was going to say it was pretty crazy because we shipped out a whole bunch of P4Ks for that show.
Ooh, can I talk about that project a little bit? Because that was really fun.
Receiving end of that, yeah, for sure.
So essentially, which was really exciting for all of us at BirdDog, Zoomtopia and the guys at Zoom decided, and were gracious enough to have us have our cameras in all of the keynote event spaces that were happening. So there were 8 rooms that each had 2 P4Ks that were running. Some of them were running cam control. A lot of them had Macs, so they were running studio monitor and some easy presets. Some of the guys were jumping into the web UI and, you know, controlling cameras that way. But the really exciting thing is that those cameras looked fantastic, that they ended up using and cutting to those for most of the production.
Oh, really?
So they had a manned camera in the back, which is always important.
Yeah.
But then, so each room was a 3-camera shoot, 2 Robo PTZs. We had one in the back of the room for a wide, and then one off to like 45 degrees to the stage. So that way we have a kind of B cam kind of angle shot, right?
Yeah.
The really amazing thing that was so we were going around, I was setting up all these cameras and whatnot. Super easy to set up, as you know. It's a single NDI connection right to the stream. These guys are using baseband, so we had SDI outputs out of each P4K, going into a couple Blackmagics, right? Switchers. We had local power because we didn't have PoE plus switches. So 3 connections to the cameras. But the really exciting thing is that they tuned their man cameras to match our P4Ks.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's fun. Yeah, because that whole P4K fleet, there was.
I think that just arrived. I think Brayton sent me a message about it today.
Yeah, he just arrived. He was out for a few days, and they were here for the past day or two. And Ryan, one of the new guys, was going through them and just like doing a general inspection and setting them up that they turned on, what have you, after shipment. And they, anyways, but yeah, now that Brayton's back, they're going through that fleet and seeing, you know, how they return to us.
Yeah, totally.
A lot of the times, you know, folks that, especially if you hand them to somebody that isn't natively NDI, like this happened at NAB a lot, they come back with all sorts of settings changed on them. So
yeah, I think a couple of them I put over to static. So, you know, in those scenarios, it's good to neuralize the cameras. You guys know that best.
Oh yeah. Yeah, we're not strangers to that.
No. But it was interesting to be in a couple of different, you know, a couple of the spaces. They were like, you can't be on the production switch. And a couple of spaces were like, yeah, it's totally fine that you can do that because most of our computers are connected that way. So it was really cool to be able to just run around and essentially set up all these studios and stages.
So is that what you were doing there? They had you setting stuff up, or were you manning the booth, or what were you?
Yeah, both. So we did set up for the keynotes 2 days or a day before the show started. And then all that was up and running. I think there was one time I had to go and color bounce one camera, or like resave some presets for them or things like that. But super easy operation. The cameras look great. I mean, that P4K is my favorite camera. Easy.
Yeah, I need to get one of them in here because there's a 400 up there, but the 200 is the one that I'm still waiting for the 240 to show up in the office.
That one's a great camera. But like the 240, the P4K also has this thing called the teleconvert mode. So I want to show that to you guys maybe next week or so.
Sure.
I'll record a video. It's essentially what's in the 240. It allows you to go, 2x the distance. So that P4K, if you're running it at 1080, that's a 24x camera.
Wow.
So just being able to punch in and not have any pixel degradation.
You're not actually distorting the image. It's an actual zoom. Yeah, that's cool.
Yep. And we used that at one of the places because we wanted a little bit of an extra throw.
Yeah.
So it was cool. But Zoomtopia, we had the pod at the booth, and that's a really exciting thing. Because a lot of people got it. There are a lot of people that are familiar with NDI that it just clicked. How useful that this would be in a Zoom meeting space or even just a production control room even.
Yeah. It's fascinating because, like, what's your opinion on the remote / virtual spaces, and like, as the landscape shifting a little bit, and some of the major corporations are going back into the office and such, and
They
curious to
are,
know
but
what
I
your
think
thoughts are on all of that.
the future's hybrid. And Zoom kind of showed us that,
Yeah.
especially at Zoomtopia. A lot of people were saying that essentially that event was a masterclass of hybrid virtual events.
Nice.
Because they had everyone coming in. There's some keynote speakers and guests, Q&A, all coming in through Zoom ISO, hitting NDI if it needed to.
Yeah.
And being able to pull those productions around. It's totally hybrid. I mean, realistically, if they had cloud endpoints set at each one of those locations, even if they were separate networks, the PTZ operator could be anywhere in the world, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
A lot of exciting stuff.
Yeah. There's
And
it's
is
so
hybrid
hard to,
too.
it's
Just
so hard to
'cause-
figure out, like, what do you focus on, right? Because there's so much to even just think about or consider when it comes to where the market is going.
Right.
And then you start talking about the AV market and what they're up to, and that's like a similar. It's a similar market, but they're doing different things, and they're going down different avenues with the NDI product, and so it is like, it's still video, it's still audio, but it's being utilized and used in different ways and with different levels of priority than
Right.
production based stuff than what we've been doing for 6 years now.
Totally. I mean, just like my couple weeks on the road, like I've seen our cameras being used like for Ivy League sports, right?
Yep. Yep.
It's being used inside classrooms and production studios. And we actually have a really exciting BirdDog user story coming out soon, where a bunch of our cameras were used in a theater production up in Boston with Mikhail Baryshnikov. So that was an incredibly exciting hybrid virtual production, because they had people coming in through Zoom that were then projected onto the theater stage to be a part of the live production. And they had a separate, different virtual experience than the people that were inside the space. And it was all powered by NDI, so we had P4Ks all around the space. There's a PF120 and a robot. And that's all getting streamed and brought into NDI production systems like Isadora, which is fantastic in the theater production world. Then sending over to our partners over at like Millicast and using Netgear switches and just, everything that you could do for an NDI production is available in a theater. So that was incredibly eye-opening to see where they're taking the next steps and pushing the boundaries.
Yeah.
So it's just been a really exciting time seeing where all this stuff goes.
That's crazy. Because you had briefly talked about it. Well, you were over there, right? So you were at the theater for a little bit, like helping them get set up.
Yep.
And yeah, you were just kind of like explaining a little bit about here's how they're integrating all of this stuff, which is, it's mind blowing, especially because like we take care of the camera element or the converter element or whichever the product that you're using, but like it goes into a larger ecosystem, and yeah, people are doing crazy stuff with our gear, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Let me jump into some of this chat real quick just to make sure that I'm following
let's see what's
along.
happening.
Yeah, GoWeb says, in my subscription management, I see one-time Cloud Connect under subscription codes. Do I need to drag it under subscriptions to start my trial?
Yes, if it's under subscription codes on the right, it needs to be dragged over to the left side.
And then
it should be green on that right side, right, GoWeb.
Follow up, it says, what basic settings do I need to do in the overview to get started?
So for Cloud Connect, that's actually pretty easy because the codecs are already predefined and configured. But actually something that you should probably do is, let me show you how to set that up. So we'll start by going to the BirdDog or your company, right? So then on the left-hand side, you'll go over to Cloud Connect groups. There probably isn't any over here right now, which is why you can't send it to a group destination, but let's show you guys how to build one right now. So if I go over to the top tab over here, I can call this new CC group. Go web as my remarks. And then over here, I get to pick my password. So if I want to do 5 zeros, and over here is where I can do the URL token. So the ending tab of that URL link. But I'll just leave it blank to auto-generate. We can skip the password for logged in users. So if you're already logged into BirdDog Cloud, there's no need to type in the password for that Cloud Connect group. Or if you only want it for internal viewers only. So only people that are actually in your cloud account to be able to see this. But I'll leave those two blank for now. So then you'll have a new Cloud Connect group. To access that, you would jump over to the Cloud Connect tab. And if that's not showing, it would be the second drop down over here. So we'll now see our new CC group, right? And we had our 5 zeros to get in. And so if I had a stream coming into this group right now, this is where that would show up. But if we pop back over to our Cloud Connect streams, we see that this doesn't have an icon yet. So where do we go to change that? We go back to our Cloud Connect groups. Over on the right-hand side, we have an icon for adjusting our branding. So I can change the color palette. If I want to change the background, if I want to change the dark, let's see. If we want to change the text. So that changed up at the top. But down at the bottom is where we can change the logo. So let's see if I want to make that a little P200 and save that branding. Or let's go to a slider image over here as well. I could go back to my Cloud Connect groups. And there's that little icon. So some fun branding options for you to do over here to customize it and make it specific for the production.
So one of the things he's followed up here with an additional question, just on the left hand side, it says BirdDog, and then it says company, and then it says overview. Can you click on that real quick, just down a few tabs?
Sure.
There. So in here,
yep,
what needs to be set up so that so for his connections in general, just
so in general, this is what it pops up as default. So you might want to go ahead and put your warning emails in over there. But let's check to make sure you have quota in your account, because as long as you do, everything here is fine. For your configuration, you can set your default configurations, or that's actually something that we didn't build yet. So we can go ahead and build a new connection right after this, John. So these are essentially all of your defaults. So if I want to know that I'm going to always do like a 5 megabit upload to Cloud Connect, I can input that there.
So that's just the fallback default connection rate.
Exactly.
Okay.
So I think by default it was already set to 3, so I can just save that here.
Which is pretty low. Like Go has asked, is there a way to, like if you're doing multiple cameras on a location, to save bandwidth, when you select that? So let's talk, I guess the question is the difference between single stream and multi-stream connections in cloud.
Sure.
How do you do it to where you can save bandwidth but still have the accessibility of multiple cameras?
So in that case, with multi-stream, we're actually able to send multiple cameras through the same SRT port. So if I wanted to select, my 3 sources, those will all come over on port 5555 or 5558 rather. And then each of those would get encoded at 10 megabits per second each, or whatever the encoded profile is.
Gotcha.
So multi-stream wouldn't be the way to do it.
But potentially sending the ones up to the cloud connect and then just pulling down the one that you want.
Yes.
So that you have them available, but then you just use the one you want, which would save on at least download speed.
Yep.
Yeah.
And the exciting thing about Cloud Connect, let's see if this option is still there. Here it is. Receive NDI only while stream is being received. So what that means is that it's not going to use bandwidth until there's a receiver on the connection. So you can always have that feed going up at 5 megabits per second, H.264, to your Cloud Connect group, right? I could send this to your group GoWeb. But as long as this is checked, the receiver, you won't be using any bandwidth until that receiver accepts the connection.
Now, do you have a baseline like bit rate that you like to camp out at that you find is a good compromise between, bandwidth and quality? Or
I do. Usually I'm hovering anywhere from like 5 to 15, 5 on my low end, because we do want to definitely have some good quality coming through. It really depends on the production and the computer. Like if you're running like some RTX like 4000 series or the Quadros, and your computer can handle it, as well as having the ISP bandwidth. I mean, there are some people that were doing like 25 megabit Cloud Connect WebRTC connections because they have the bandwidth. So it really depends. And that feed is going to look great.
But it really is one of those subjective questions. Like we get it quite often at the support desk, is that, what should I set it at? It's like, well,
it depends.
Tell us about your ISP. Tell us about your computer. Tell us about what sort of encoding options you have. Tell us about, the best thing to do, quite honestly, is to go to your connection, set up a free trial, go to your connection, and play around with it for 30 minutes, and just test some stuff out and see how it looks and how it feels and how it responds. And is it quicker if you do it at 5 megs or at 10 megs? Doesn't make any difference at all. If you use Cloud Connect, you like that better? It's more responsive. It's the same quality as SRT connections. There are lots of questions. And the reason is we give you lots of options so that you can pick the thing that you prefer, instead of it's this one way all the time, take it or leave it. It's not that way anymore. When you first launch, that's basically like what Cloud One was, where we had 1 or 2 options. Now you get to pick. You get to pick and not only pick what services you want and how fast it can go, but you also pick the poison. Like all things, there's pros and cons. And so there are trade-offs when you lower the bit rate way down. There's going to be a trade-off there. But if you don't have an ISP that can handle that sort of thing, then the option is there to reduce the bandwidth so that you can get 1 or 2 streams out of that, poor performing ISP.
Exactly. Like right now on my ISP, I believe I have 25 megabit upload right now. So I'm using 10 right now to go to my DX instance. I'm using 5 or whatever StreamYards is pulling in for you and over here. So if I wanted to add a new SRT connection, I'll go, we'll click company again. We can jump into our configurations tab. So over here is where we have those FFmpeg flags and SRT tuning methods for those configurations. So to create a new one, let's create a 5 megabit per second, because again, I don't have as much upload as I would like. So let's add that in here. So I name it 5 megabits. I should set it to 5 megabits as well. And then over here, I have the option of what video encoder I want to use. So if I want to use CPU to H.264, I can jump in there. If I want to use my GPU and do H.264 or H.265 encoding, I can select that with those second and third options. If I had an Intel graphics card, that's where Quick Sync comes in. Again, H.264 or H.265. Video Toolbox is the one for the Apple M1 and M2 machines. So that's their encoding for doing H.264 and H.265. And then there's also Quick Sync for VP9 connections. So what I'll do here is I'll do NVENC 264, and I like to kind of put these encoding options inside this remarks tab, because that way I'll get a little blurb somewhere else just to kind of remind me what these connections are.
Yeah, exactly. Especially if you're testing out a bunch of things, you're going to want to differentiate what's what type of encode.
Exactly. And I'll show you guys where those remarks pop up soon. We can do a constant bit rate or MBR. You can change your GOP size. You can just have some look ahead and adjust your max B frames. This can get pretty complex in its own. So what I recommend, everybody do is there are some SRT tuning configuration website guidelines, things like that available to get your lowest latency or to get your highest quality encoding. So it is all customizable, which is why we don't have a specific go-to configurations, because it all depends. This is cool. We have a new recording type. So it can be that auto, which would default to that MPEG transport stream. It looks like we can also do MP4, MOV, AVI, FLV, and WebM now. So that's really exciting.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, that'll be perfect for if you have that decoder selected and you're recording on that source or transmission endpoint.
Especially if you're going out if you're taking those raw files and going into like Resolve or something.
Oh, exactly.
And MOV is a lot faster than just kind of the defaults that were available a while ago.
Right. So I'll put that one onto high performance.
DI files. Sorry, go ahead.
No worries. So now if I go back into my configurations, let's set up a new SRT connection. Let's just say I was going to my laptop. Now I'll have that 5 megabit per second under my company profile connections. And then underneath there is where it'll have my remarks. So again, that's why I like to put in those high performance, low latency, all that stuff in there. So that way I don't have to go back to the configurations page to check.
Yeah, this goes back to that original conversation you and I were having about how this web interface has really tightened up in terms of usability for the customer.
Right.
Because the layout, the design, and it kind of even feels like the way that BirdDog's going with their software. Like if you guys have seen the new Central Pro, for software, it feels a lot like there it is right there. Feels a lot like the same flavor. And so now the difference between this software and cloud, you'll feel a little bit more comfortable, especially as the firmwares are happening and like the updates are happening for software and whatever. It's all going to start to kind of feel the same and not feel so like a hard shift. So yeah, that's
that, and then the web interface of the converter or the cameras, and hopefully converter soon.
Yeah, exactly.
Definitely, the Play is already on that new firmware, so we have that new UI loaded and whatnot.
Yeah, I found out today. Thanks to shout out to Eamon on this, but I found out today that the Play's the CEC menu is fully functional. It's actually pretty easy to turn on once you find out how to turn CEC on your selected TV.
As long as that's on, you just up, down, left, or right, or even select, and it pulls up that menu. And you just go ahead and select sources. We were using that at that NAB because we had some TVs that those were plugged into, and that was great.
Wait, at NAB or at
New York? Yeah.
New York.
I had it available for that show, which was great.
'Cause, yeah, I was monkeying around. The last I had heard from the engineers, like, I speak with them every week, and the last conversation we had about Play was, "Well, it's launching, but that menu's not there," and so I was like, "Oh, that's a bummer." Well, then it was on the website and everything, so I
Yep.
circled around today and was like, "Hey, guys, this I haven't heard any
Yeah.
update on this happening anytime soon." David was like, "No, it's done."
Yeah.
And so then I was like, "Oh, I can't I can't get it to do anything," and he was like, "No, seriously, it's done." He's like, "Here," and he, like, sent me some instructions, and I was like,
Yeah.
so I went back with my tail between my legs and was like, "Yep, you're right, finished,
It's there.
all finished."
Yep.
Let me just jump in here. Let me clean up the chat again real quick before we, uh this has been it's been an hour and 45 minutes already, so
That never feels like it.
well done. Yeah, no, seriously, that's a good thing, right? It's not
It is
supposed
a
to
good
feel
thing.
like long in the tooth, and there's so much to talk about with cloud.
I know there really is.
Yeah, that it's so hard to do that in, like, even just a single session, but anyways.
So that's why I'm going to be releasing a bunch of cloud videos, cloud bites.
Great.
Here's the setup a connection. Here's now that your connection is live. Here's how you attach it to your BirdDog PTZ keyboard. Because I showed here today that I have that through Studio Monitor. But like now that it's local, right? Again, I can have my keyboard subscribed to John's camera, and then have full control that way.
And we fixed the single camera over cloud issue, right?
Yes, we did.
Now we do multiple PTZ cameras over cloud, which is that was a huge ask, and I know that it wasn't a simple fix, and so they invested some serious dev money into getting that to function, which is great.
But it's so worth it because now you can have those 3 camera shoots, anywhere in the world, have your production control team receiving those ultra low latency through Cloud Connect. You can then have your PTZ operators in the production room have access to those cameras.
Setting up the shots, doing it as they're supposed to.
Exactly.
GoWeb had come around and said, "So how much with Silicone 2, how much dependency on dedicated PCs at either endpoint will be reduced?" That's an interesting question because there's a lot of open-ended questions. I don't know, Jake may be able to talk more about this than I can, but
it's pretty extraordinary what Silicone 2 is going to offer for the converters and for the cameras, at least. Just a couple production workflows that I'm, building and looking forward to with that release is being able to have our 4K Pro family as an SRT decoder or an endpoint receiver. So that way I can send that high quality reference video to a reference monitor without the need of a production computer gateway as the endpoint. Currently it works that way right now, as long as you have like a little Intel NUC or some production computer to flip those sources to the local. But as soon as Silicone 2 is out and about, that really changes the game for a lot of these workflows.
Yeah, workflows and what have you. Anyways, I won't get into do this off camera, but get into the details and tech spec of how that will work with sources and what have you. But anyways, like I said, that'll
once we get a little bit closer to release, we'll definitely as all of you guys know, we go pretty hard on the socials once things are out. So you'll definitely be seeing how all this stuff is working in those scenarios.
Yeah, and it's definitely underway. We speak with, like I said, I talk to the engineers every week. They're all in Australia and we're over here. And so Thursdays is when that meeting happens. And so we continue to get updates from them. GoWeb had said, "So with my trial version, will I be able to test creating a demo environment with 2 endpoints on different networks?" Yes,
exactly.
That is the purpose of the trial. So you put one endpoint on one network and one on another and make the connection. And the point is to try it all out before you purchase it. There's just there's a watermark basically, which is over the image. So it renders the image not very usable. But the features are all functional there. And they that way you can make sure this service will work on my network before you buy it. Good stuff. NetHab has said, "So with Silicone 2, will each camera show up as an endpoint?" Closer to release date, meaning late January. So the running joke is it's coming out in January.
It's coming out soon.
But it was supposed to be last January. Anyway, late January is correct. So I don't know how the integration with the cameras and stuff on SRT is going to work with cloud. Like I haven't wrapped my brain around that yet.
Yeah, I've heard a couple of things on the workflow and how that's going to be essentially endpoints. But again, once we get closer to that implementation, we'll be able to show you guys.
Yes. Angus says, so will Silicon 2 add SRT to my old studio? So Studio will not be getting the Silicon 2 update from what I understand. The hardware just cannot do it.
Yeah.
And so that product is already end of life and not end of service, but end of life. And so that one won't.
I mean, I still use my studio on a daily basis. I mean, we were looking at that earlier today.
There are studios online in my office right now. So I know that they have said NDI 5 is coming to Mini and Studio. And so as a part of the converter line, so the studio should be getting that update.
Yeah.
But yeah, the SRT stuff for Silicon 2 for Studio, it just isn't able to do it. With so much to learn about cloud, request Jake to come on John's show at least once a month, so the rest of the month that we can try out what we learned. I mean, I'm fine with that.
I'm good with that too.
Yeah, I definitely think now the likelihood that Jake is going to be available once a month may be low. But if he is available, by all means.
No, I don't think we got in last month. I think it was September we did twice. So that was good.
I think that's true. Yeah. We gotta, we can
we'll make sure
it's
a
reoccurring schedule, something going on. Have Jake Tuesdays, second Tuesday of the month or something.
Yeah.
Schedule it out.
We'll do that.
Okay, so there has been an ongoing support ticket, and Jake, you don't necessarily need to hang around for this if you have important business to take care of. But that's been going on Twitch while the cloud conversations have been happening, and so I'm Spooky, who's Canadian apparently from Vancouver or Toronto. I can't figure it out, but he's been having some issues with his P200s, as I understand it, and so we're just talking some general information. He's having some problems with P200 cameras.
Mm-hmm.
And he had them all set up on static IP addresses, which you haven't been around long enough to know how I feel about that. But anyways, he's got a couple of environments set up this way. One of them seems to be working. The other one, the cameras just seem to have all disappeared. He can't access them on the web UIs, and he's having issues. He says he hasn't changed anything, so he's not too sure what's going on with that. It's actually a pretty, we get this quite often, believe it or not. So my first out of the gates, before, this is more general information. This isn't necessarily how you should assess this problem right now. But the way that I read the network specs from New Tech and from what I've seen, static networks can be used, but the critical piece is the MDNS is missing traditionally. And so you have to use something like Discovery Server to set that up. Yep. You can also have static IPs on your network, but you use them in the DHCP reservation list, which then adds them to the MDNS and enables those services to work and function correctly.
Mm-hmm.
The problem with that, with not having an MDNS, so NDI relies heavily on MDNS, by the way. So if you don't have one, the brains of your operation are missing, and it will work for a time, but it will eventually stop working. And I've seen this, I don't know, hundreds of times at this point, or possibly pushing thousands, where people set up static networks. Now, the problem is that static is the traditional way of doing AV installations, especially if you're doing, what are they called? 10-base networks, and you're doing, I think SMPTE 2110 is that, and Dante networks are usually static. And so the standard in the AV world is just go in, change it all to static so that the addresses never change. Well, the way that the NDI protocol was designed was to be able to plug it into a network, to an IP address be issued, and you to be up and running in a couple of minutes, not needing to go in and do all this configuration. The argument against this, of course, is, well, I don't want the IP addresses to change. And fair enough, but the way that the actual protocol is designed is for that MDNS to be functioning, and in a pure static environment,
mm-hmm.
the MDNS is not being updated. There may be one somewhere, but it's not being updated because when you set a static IP address with the NDI protocol, they don't broadcast their information like they do when they're in DHCP. And so the MDNS isn't getting updated, and it eventually falls out of sync, or there isn't one in a lot of static, unmanaged static networks. There isn't actually an MDNS functioning on the network. And so then when you go to look for your sources, it appears that there are none, because there's no table. Now, for your specific problem here, you're on a computer, whether it's a PC or a Mac. PC is a little bit better because they actually learn the network a little bit, and they gather network information, so they find out who's who. So what's the MAC addresses being broadcast on the network, what IP addresses are being associated with them. So they kind of do their own gathering. There's some internal routing stuff that gets collected. But in this instance, if you're connecting a computer to that network, to your static network, you have static IP addresses, and you can't get to them via the Chrome browser, something else is going on here. It's not necessarily an MDNS thing, because you should always be able to get to the web UIs of those cameras. Whether you can see the NDI signals, that's something different. But if all cameras are no longer accessible in the IP range that you've designated on static IP addresses, and you go to Chrome and you put in the IP address in the address bar and you hit enter and it doesn't bring up a web UI, that's something different. That's not MDNS. That's because the PC should be able to actually query those things itself. It's one of the things. It's one of the differences between NDI nodes, network nodes, like Internet of Things, those sorts of network devices, and computing devices. Computers have the ability to have like a lot of onboard memory. They learn the network. They figure out their own networking path. They figure out, sometimes they do it better than the networking stuff does, especially if the network is set up poorly. So there's a lot of computing power in a computer like a Windows PC or a Mac. Those network cards are different than the ones that you're finding on the cameras or the converters of BirdDog products, but any sort of network node. The camera NIC cards, and I've said this ad nauseum, I think, but anyways, the camera NIC cards are just nodes. They look the same as the ones on your computer, but they're just nodes on a network. All they're doing is accepting an IP address from a DHCP server or outputting their information at the IP address that was issued to them. And so when you go to a static network, all it does, it assumes that your network knows who's who because you're assigning a static IP address. So the network understands that I'm functioning in static and I'm not going to be, constantly sending out a broadcast saying who I am because somebody gave me this address manually. So it's a little bit of an interesting way to write the code. It's not necessarily traditional, but anyways, that's the way that the NDI SDK is written. So all that to say, two things are happening here. If you can't see the NDI sources, but you get to the web UI, that's potentially an MDNS or a networking problem. If you can't get to the web UI, then that's something.
There's something else going on.
Yeah, something is either blocking the network, or you're not on the same subnet, or something else is happening here. Because if they especially if it's more than one camera, then something is clearly blocking what's going on. So
yep.
So I suggested Discovery Server in the Twitch side of the chat. The reason I suggest that is because that's how the static networks, how you can get an MDNS on a static network and keep everything like moving smoothly. But adding Discovery Server now, after you've lost the cameras, that's not going to help.
That's not going to. Nope.
That's going to just so. Anyways,
you probably need to neuralize that one.
Yeah, we can neuralize it. That program's for free over on the downloads page. But yeah, if it's disappeared, if you can't get to it on the networking settings, but the camera, when you power cycle it, it boots up and it does the little boot up dance. Then yeah, something's up. Something's up and it could be multiple things. But anyways, so there, I wanted to cover that because I saw that unfolding and you waiting for the SDK email. Now in NDI 5, just for your knowledge, in the NDI tools download, ndi.tv/tools. In the 5.5 download, they give you Discovery Server. So you don't have to get it from the SDK. You get it from the tools.
Also, be careful with Discovery Server, because if you click inside the command window, it will stop the Discovery Server service.
Yes.
And you have to press enter to enable that again. So if it is running, make sure it's running and then minimize it.
Yes. So that's a great point. It used to be that it would run in the background when you hit enter and it would like freeze the screen and you could like read the things that it was spitting out. But
now that just stops it.
Yeah. Now it literally stops Discovery Server. And so if all of a sudden your sources disappear, and you're like, I got a discovery server, and you need to make
I've
sure
watched that
that's
happen
actually,
in Studio Monitor. I mean, if
oh
the
my
camera's
word.
still subscribed to it, it'll,
Yeah.
or the source, it'll still play. But if you right click or go through the drop down, all of the sources instantaneously disappear.
Yep. So let me jump back to GoWeb because this is a cloud question. Hey, I think I missed this one. I got this error when I try to go to the shop option for my newly configured cloud account. This page has crashed. We're so sorry. Security error, not allowed to access cross origin style sheet.
Interesting. I know
Yeah,
Alessandro was saying something about the shop. So this,
oh
I
yeah,
don't
yeah,
know,
yeah.
you know, I guess the
I
two
saw
are
that note.
tied together. We'll look into it.
Yeah, we'll check that out. GoWeb. That's not a normal. You're not supposed to see that error. I'm not too sure what that is.
Yeah.
MTash, what's going on, man? Yo, John. Do you know anyone at BirdDog?
A couple of people.
Can you contact someone to fix the link in the shop to buy stuff?
Oh, yeah.
Been trying for 3 days. Oh, there it is. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So that's the thing that Alessandro.
Yeah. I think it's being in the works right now.
Yeah, there's some chatter behind the scenes. I saw that late yesterday, so they are aware that that's what's going on. BirdDog, I can't get to the web UI is my issue. I can't even get Neuralizer to detect the camera. I can't even ping it. All of them boot up fine. So here's the thing. So the first thing I want you to check is I want you to set up Neuralizer. I want you to have the camera plugged into the computer directly. I want Neuralizer running, and then I want you to open up a command window, and I want you to ping 192.168.100 space -T and run that. So it's a continual pinging 100. Turn on the camera, and if you get no responses back, that's a hardware problem. That's not even a. But
Yep.
when the camera boots up, it will always send out like 2 or 3 pings, or it'll broadcast 2 or 3 times on 100, and always, because that's how Neuralizer catches it. But if you don't see that at all, and it says like destination unreachable, and then it should say 192.168.100.123, because that's what Neuralizer sets that NIC card. When you select it and you say reset camera, it changes your NIC card settings to 100.123. And if it doesn't say that, then you need to go in and clear your NIC card's static IP settings. It means that you've set them to something on static, and that needs to be in DHCP obtain automatically mode before you turn on Neuralizer and select the NIC card and hit reset video or reset setting. So there's kind of a sequence of events, and if you're doing everything in static, Neuralizer may not even be working correctly because it assumes that you're running in automagic mode, in DHCP mode. All of them are booting up fine in terms of they're doing the dance, but yeah, they're not checking in. So that's the first thing is with Neuralizer, make sure that you have DHCP mode basically on the NIC card that you're using to connect the camera to the computer. That's like step number 1. If the cameras have static IPs and your computer can't open the web page, that means the computer is not set up on the right IP range, meaning that it doesn't match the cameras. That is very possible, NetHab. I mean, it could be that your computer is not on the same subnet, 22255, as the cameras. So if the cameras turn on, if there's network activity, if everything seems to be all right, then be sure that you go in and check your computer IP range on that NIC card and make sure that it is also on whatever it is that you set the custom setting to, because that would be required. Thanks for your time, Jake. Would love to listen to some guitar playing sometime. So
Definitely.
that's actually the next show. It's not in NDI related at all. It's going to be a BirdDog special. It's just Jake doing soundscapes with like a blue sky.
Yeah. We'll do all that.
Do you have a blue sky?
No, I don't have a blue sky. I have used them before. They are so fun.
We gotta get you one.
Yeah, those are cool.
Get you
no, but we can make that NDI workflow too, because I have a Dante network floating around my studio space, and then using BirdDog Dante to NDI bridge, I can flip those Dante sources into NDI, And then here, take it another step further, jump in with retransmitter, merge my NDI video with now NDI audio. I could be plugged directly in, and you can hear the microphones right now. So it's pretty great.
Yeah, it's gonna get pretty crazy with all the options that are coming up here. So
Yep,
Jake is the guy that can show us how it can all work too.
totally.
Awesome,
So,
man. Well,
yeah,
thanks
until
for
next
hanging
time.
out with me today. I really appreciate it. It's been really difficult to get you on the schedule because you're such in high demand, but I really appreciate you cutting out some time for us and
Happy to.
talking cloud again, because I think the more exposure we have here, with folks just seeing it being used, it's
Yep.
going to start, the scales will begin to fall and the light bulbs will start going off as to
Yeah, and the
how
gears will
this
get
can be
turning
used.
because it's
Yep.
it's really super customizable, and that's why like we recommend you guys reaching out to us at help or hello.
Yep.
Schedule some one-on-one or team demos of this workflow so we can kind of tune it specifically to what you guys need.
Yep.
Because as we talked about it, post-production world, live real-time production, sports, theater, AV, all has a place for cloud. They all have a little different configurations that would potentially be needed, but that's just the nature of the beast and how
Well, and Jake said
amazing
this
it can
the
be
other
for you.
day. You said this to me the other day where it was like, well, it's more about being solution oriented and getting the customer to the finish line.
Yep.
And I was like, yeah, that's a great way to think about it, because like we make the endpoints, and again, we have like these visions as to how I think that these products are going to be used. But really, like the customer comes up with, here's what I want to accomplish. And we have all these tools in the toolkit as to like, all right, here's how we can get you to that solution, and understanding just even the basics as to like, why did we design this? Why would we use this? How does it simply get set up? Like Go Webby's, he's walking through, okay, so are we installing one endpoint at both sides? How does this look? What's the purpose? Just kind of getting that stuff kind of out there and giving some use cases and showing like, here's why we might use, the SRT connection over the Cloud Connect, or here's when you might use a reporter, or here's, showing those things as options and throwing it out there. And now you guys get to take it and run with it and be like, oh, well, I could use that in my workflow this way.
Right.
And that's what we're doing here. We're just trying to kind of expose it and get your wheels going so that you can see, okay, this would answer this question. Like the cloud thing. Like if all you had to do was ship out a laptop and a camera to a client, and now you have a remote location, right? And now you can control PTZ, you can do all that stuff over the cloud, and you guys saw it happening in real time. He was calling presets and moving things around. Like that's how easy it is. And now you don't have to send somebody, they don't need a hotel room, you don't have to feed them, they don't need a rental car, like, or it's like, well, we don't have a budget to do any of that now, but for $30, a month, I get 30 days where now I can do those remote locations, and all they need is a good connection to the internet. Like all of a sudden the production value of what you can offer somebody, is extremely high. And so that's, it's
There are
pretty
many
exciting.
cases, a lot of this stuff happening over 5G and LTE too, and 4G as well.
Yep. Yeah, that's becoming
I've been in
more
a
and
couple
more of a
productions where
reality.
they said that, hey, you have internet access on site, and you show up and it's for the point of sale, and that's all locked down and you can't even jump into that, right? So being able to still do BirdDog Cloud over 5G or LTE connection, and then still sending and receiving all those streams.
Well, we were
Pretty
doing cloud
incredible.
stuff at NAB in April over
Yep.
a solo pack, right?
We
Like
were, yeah, the
that's
live use solo. We were
yep,
totally
a
doing all
bonded
that.
cellular network, but still, like the fact that we were doing that, and among other things with that network, but we were bringing in cloud connections over that, and from like Norway,
Yeah,
from Melbourne and places around the world, all
it's crazy.
into Vegas, into that congested hall, in the middle of that congested center hall.
We were right in the
And
middle of it too.
yep, we were practically smack dab in the middle, and it was great. It worked really
Awesome.
well for what it was, and I was very impressed. I was very impressed with ourselves.
Yeah, we should be.
Yeah.
We do some fun stuff.
So today I got more insight into cloud, especially when you have the trial to play with. A suggestion, if there is a way that we can fetch feeds from some open cloud endpoints that may be useful to test.
Yeah, happy to.
Yeah,
I'm going to
we
start
can
setting
definitely
up a
get you.
few SRT open ports and signals for you guys to test out.
Yeah.
So maybe for next time, what I'll do is I can prep all that, and then you guys can actually pull those streams right in.
Yeah, we've talked about having that, like, okay, so we watched, this is, I don't know if you saw this, a couple of, like, last week we watched the Panasonic NDI
Oh, right.
Netgear webcast.
Sure.
And one of the cool things Panasonic did was they set up a test room with their cameras and like lighting and whatever. And you could book a time online for like 15, 20, 30 minutes. And then
And
you
have
got
access
full
to that.
access to the room, and you had NDI control, and you had like a bunch of things that you could like
Cool.
manipulate the lights and what. I thought, oh, it's actually like a little conference room somewhere in the world, in, I don't know, Japan or something. But you basically just poured into it, and you can control all the stuff and play with all the stuff. And then when it's done, it just resets back to zero. And then the next person that books the room can have some time to play. And I was
That's
like,
awesome.
oh, like a virtual sales room, basically. And I was like, we've been talking about doing that with NDI sources for a long time, about like just making
Sure.
SRT streams, and like you should be able to subscribe to them for 30 minutes and see how they come across. And this source is in London, and this source is in Auburn Hills, and this source is in Melbourne, and you can see how they, how they work. So that may be something that we consider more of, especially with our cameras and whatever. Like you could do a lot more virtual sales if you had a,
Yep.
like, we're about to move offices. I mean, it's going to be a year, but we're about to move offices. If that's something that we need to put on the docket, as to, we need an actual
Oh,
room.
definitely. I mean, I want to make sure that we have like an A200 outside at least, especially
Yeah.
if there's a good view.
Yeah, but even that, it's like I could set up a little conference room or something, or like a staged room in Auburn Hills where people could rent, 30 minutes and remote in and play around with each of the cameras and see what they look like and see what Zoom is like. And anyways, just an interesting
Great idea.
idea, and we need to get it approved from the powers that be. But anyways, we can do that. Hey, NetHub, you might know this. NetHub says, NDI Dante Bridge, will it embed all 32 channels of audio to be mixed from my house?
No, it will not. It's currently capped at 8 sources right now, or 8 streams. Those can either be paired as
Left, right.
four stereos, or a single NDI input with all 8 channels.
I was going to say, can you do 8? It's like 8 mono, or what is it?
Yeah, 8 mono.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
There you go. I know that. Well, anyways,
there are some other softwares that do that. That will convert your like ASO devices or Dante virtual sound cards and actually get your 32 or 64 sources. It's not something that we have, but something I have used in the past that does work.
Nice. I want to jump back here. So thanks so much, guys. I'll work on it, and if I can't reach them, then I'll send in a ticket. Just weird that I have it in Vancouver, Montreal, working easy. Just this Toronto setup is being a pain. Thanks for being helpful. I mean, that's close to my heart, man. I'm from Toronto, so I want to get that one working for you. So yeah, reach out to my guys at the help desk. Just say, hey, I was talking to John and Jake on the show. We're the guys setting things up in Toronto. At the very, the very least, what we can get a remote session set up and we can take a look and see what's going on. Do you have people in Toronto or are you in Toronto where if we need to power cycle these cameras and do some basic troubleshooting, we can do that? If so, and if you can't get it functioning, one of us can certainly set a remote session with you and walk through some basic troubleshooting stuff. So no worries there. We'll definitely work to get you across the finish line. Oh, look who decided to show up.
Aren't you on a plane right now, man? He was telling me that he has like a 20-hour flight to deal with. He's going to Australia.
Man.
So.
Oh, okay. This is the trip, is it?
It's the trip.
Jan, this was your show, man. We should have had you come on here and school Jake and I on everything cloud. So Jan is one of the main architects for cloud. Really super cool guy. He's on his way over to Melbourne, evidently, for an extended stay. So I wish I could join you, but it's I only get to see you once a year. So, and that's always at NAB. and it's not like we're free to just hang out for a while. We're usually pretty busy at that one, but hopefully you're doing well. Good to see you. Alex says, "Hey, how powerful of a PC would you need for just comms and Dante Bridge? You want to run both at the same time?" Great question.
Depends. Honestly,
over to you, Jake.
I don't know. I mean, I always prefer the computers with dedicated graphics cards and whatnot.
Yes,
but for comms and bridge, realistically, a Nook or one of those like the Canyon PCs or things like that should most likely be fine. Those softwares aren't too CPU and GPU intensive.
Yeah, they're not crazy labor intensive. Comms is the one that will be heavier than Dante Bridge.
Yes, definitely.
So depending on what you're doing, like how many channels and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But comms, they're both not crazy CPU intensive. It's just, the bigger the better.
Bigger the better, but it always depends on like the amount of NDI sources and how many things you're trying to send and receive through those computers and whatnot. So,
right. Yeah, I would. It's hard to like say buy this, CPU, because whenever you say that, then it's always like, well, the next one would have been better, So it's hard to. I wouldn't do anything less than an i5, preferably better than an i5. I think that's very, very entry level. But yeah, I'd start there. Again, more RAM the better. So start maybe at 16. Yeah, if you're doing anything that's going to require having a good GPU built in is going to be great, like a dedicated graphics card for that sort of purpose. NVIDIA, we do a lot of
potentially two NICs as well. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, dual NICs will save your hide when it comes to,
especially if you're doing Dante and NDI, having one on and then NDI on the other. Or teaming both of them together.
Jake, are you merging Dante and NDI yet, or are you keeping them separate on a VLAN?
I've done both. They're both giving me very similar results.
Okay. You don't sound thrilled.
It's interesting because I think it's more having to do with the Dante settings in the NDI profile on 5 rather than it's separate. So there's a couple of tests I want to do. But right now right now they are merged, right? But about last week or a couple weeks ago, before I broke down my studio, I did have them separate. So
what is the deal with QoS? Because I think that they're fighting against the profiles, like the protocols are fighting against each other in my mind.
I think they are as well, and that was kind of why I initially started to separate them.
I gotta have Netgear on here. Maybe I can get
that would be great to chat with them about it too. John Herschel or Devin or any of those guys on, because we are starting to see that happen, right? The merge of the two protocols on the same network.
Well, I had talked to John at NAB, and the NDI5 profile had just kind of come out.
Right.
It was in like a recent firmware update, and they've done several updates since then. But
it's been better since the update from a couple of days ago, I've noticed.
Okay. I couldn't get into the weeds with him about it, and I kind of wanted to, as to like, all right, explain to me how you're doing this. But I think the guy to talk to,
because Dante has like very specific network configurations that need to be set. Right. And NDI can run on those configurations, but I have seen a couple things where if you're pulling,
okay, so
sources,
this is the hot take between you and I. I have to like, we're gonna have this on a live show, and you can choose to say what you want to say. I have been watching the climate and the conversations happening between NDI and Dante for the past like 2.5, 3 years, till I wrap my brain around both of these protocols. And as I'm watching those conversations mature, they don't appear to be running in parallel. I find that those two protocols seem to be gravitating to more of like a swimming in their own lane type of thing.
Yep.
And the protocols can work together. Matter of fact, BirdDog knows that they can because we've designed stuff to do it.
Yep.
However, it seems to me that in general, when we talk about the protocols and the companies that own those protocols, they seem to be going more into a competition realm than a partnership realm.
Yep.
Your thought?
I'm seeing a very similar thing, John.
Okay, because that's exactly how I was like, it just appears to me like the announcement, for example, with NDI 5, that now we have an NDI audio function. Seems to me that it's like, it almost appears, and I don't know this for sure. This is totally just me reading the tea leaves, is it appears that they're going to compete against each other. Like didn't Audinate just come out with a video protocol?
They did.
So, and then NDI came out with an audio protocol, and now they're kind of doing this little number, right? Where they're, I mean, I guess they're in parallel, but they're not looking to work together. They're looking to compete. And
so it definitely gets interesting.
Fine with it. Dante is already, I mean, integrated.
It's like, have you seen that XKCD comic with the USB standards? It's like, it's a really funny one. I'll have to send it over to you. But essentially, it's like, oh, we've worked on this brand new, protocol, and now all of a sudden you have a new standard. So it's just adding another standard to the list of all the, potentials.
Seriously,
I'll push it your way. It's funny, but it's kind of what we're dealing with now. The broadcasters and the guys that are using NDI are different than where Dante specifically jumped into, because they started with like recording studios, and then it ended up being perfect for AV networks and whatnot. So now they're kind of going into broadcast, and NDI is going the other way. We have our broadcast guys, and now we're seeing where actually NDI works in other production and post-production workflows.
I made this prediction a couple of weeks ago. I just said, I suspect that we'll hear an NDI announcement next year at NAB about NDI audio. And Ian was like hanging out in the comments one time. He's like, well, there's already an NDI audio controller. And I was like, what? And he's like, here's the link. And he sent me something that I need to like go. I think he sent it to me on Teams. But he sent me a link. He's like, check this out. And I was like, oh man, the stars are definitely aligning, where it's like, all right, we're gonna go all in on being the video and audio solution, like Flavor, because we think the NDI piece is the right way to go. It's just gonna be so fascinating, because Dante is, for the most part, fairly well accepted.
It's great. It works well. I was a very early adopter. I turned my recording studio into a Dante networked enabled studio, because it was a lot easier to throw down a stage box and a single Cat 6 cable, whether it be in the wall already or just be able to coil one up. Then what's
the other standard? The AES standard.
AES 67.
Yeah,
it runs parallel with Dante, and there are some AES 67 devices that can be, converted through Dante and be.
I noticed it on the Midas boards now. Like that's like one of their main stage box options. AES 67.
AES 50. Yeah, that's for connecting their stage boxes to their controller.
Right.
So I was using the same one. So I had like a Behringer X32 and then a stage box.
Yeah, I have a rack 32.
Cool. I actually sold you have the rack, and I had the core. So I had the one.
I have a core. I have the core, the thin one.
Did you really actually get one?
Yeah, I did.
Because I know we talked about this like maybe
ages ago. Yes. Yeah.
I'm so glad that you got it. I ended up selling mine with the Dante card, but I wasn't doing live productions anymore.
Yeah, I just need to get it. I have a freight case and everything, and I need to put it now we're like way off the deep end here. But I have a freight case, and I want to move it to that. I need to get a stage box. But basically, with like two handles, you could run like a whole PA. So
totally,
that's in a different nerdy world. But my wife is in the music realm, and she does some recording and whatever. And we have a lot of friends that do a lot of music stuff, and that's kind of like where we camp out. So I have like all this gear that's sitting in a network rack in my office at home. But yeah, I got the core, but now I need to get the stage boxes, which is like, that's like $600.
Yeah.
So find one
But
of
they
those.
sound great. I mean, I did an
Yeah.
audio shootout between that and like the $200,000 API console.
Yeah.
We also used some Whirlwind transformers to make sure that we were recording, the same signal at each time. And we were doing A/B tests, and we couldn't hear, you couldn't hear the difference between the Midas and the stage box compared to the API console.
I was
exciting.
getting a congregation to come to me, and they said they wanted to buy a new soundboard. They were going from 01Vs and Yamaha 01Vs, and I was like, okay, cool. So I was looking at the X series, and then they went and they got an opinion from someone else, and the guy said, "Oh, do this Presonus, 32S." I was like, okay, well, anyways, they didn't ask me again, and so then this Presonus appeared. They just like went out and bought it,
right?
And I was like, well, this is good, except it's like different. A part of its own ecosystem. It's a beautiful board. I mean, I've used it; it's great, but it's just a part of its own like ecosystem. And I was thinking, like if we're gonna rerun stage boxes and update the system and whatever, Behringer, now that they do all the Midas stuff, whatever, like it's all pretty well established. Right. Whereas the Presonus board was brand new, like it pretty much had launched 6 months earlier, this particular one. And I was like, well, okay, I guess we'll evolve with the new technology. But the guy that sold it to them was like, this is the latest and greatest. It's like, well, yeah, but it's kind of like anything where it's the latest and greatest and that hasn't been established yet. And we need to wait 18 months for all the things to come out for it. So anyway, it's fine. I would have loved to go with the next series just because there's a lot of gear out there that's even like used gear that you can get relatively inexpensive. But oh yeah, big day, everybody. Wait, where is hang on one second. So I noticed this the other day. Yeah, 100 on the YouTube page. So thanks for all of you that jumped over there.
There's actually one thing I want to, share that I totally forgot to talk about today.
Let's see it. Yes. Oh, hang on. Let me make that full screen. Boom.
BirdDog. We won for the Reader's Choice Awards. Streaming media. P120. Best PTZ and network control camera.
That is stinking awesome. I'm totally going to get the next office. We're going to have a trophy case in the hallway.
Oh, we have to.
And then we'll have a camera on the trophy case, and that will be a sword that you can pull in cloud, and you can see all the awards that we gather over the years.
That would be great. Because there's a couple of them. There's a couple of them now.
Yep, I got one on this. The door of this studio has the one from NAB.
Oh,
for premiere that you accepted.
Oh, fun!
But yeah, that one's here.
TSA wasn't too happy with the shape and the layout of this award when I was going through security on my way back home.
The arrowhead?
Yeah. They're like, I think you got something in your bag, mate. Like, we got to check this out.
Yeah. So, well, it's just an award. It's not a weapon, I promise.
No. Yep.
Okay. So just to follow up with the Dante and comms. And again, and you're full screen. If you ever need a jet, just say so. It's totally cool.
I do have a meeting to jump into this next one, but what's the question?
You've survived for what are we at? 2.5 hours?
2:30? Yeah, something like that.
So these shows, man, they just keep getting longer and longer. But dude, thank you so much for hanging out with
John.
me. I really appreciate it. I'll have you on again really soon. Everybody loves it when you're on here, so it's always a good time.
Happy to be here.
Awesome,
always a good time. And then we'll do snacks on stream next time because we always have to do that. A
coordinated snacks on stream. Let's plan on it. Sounds good. I'll get my snacks on stream manager on it.
Perfect.
Take it easy, bud.
All right, take it easy.
Later.
Bye.
All right, folks. I will jump onto the chat real quick. Let's clean this up before we call it a day. Would an Intel NUC with an i5 USB to Ethernet adapter be enough for the application of splitting Dante and NDI to running those two applications? That's pretty low. I don't trust those USB. I have one in here, but I only use it for like verifying things. I don't use it in a production based. And i5 is pretty much entry level. the vMix machine that I'm running right now is an Intel NUC. It's an i7, and it struggle buses with like vMix and 5 sources. So I have to connect that via USB-C to a dual fiber chassis, which then I go fiber into my switch, and then I'm fine. So I would consider that fairly like bare bones, bare minimum, Alex. Any news on Core 7? Currently, no, but I know that they have had several iterations, like model iterations going through Melbourne, and so that is a hotly anticipated item, especially here at this office, because we would love to get our hands on those and a 240. Hey, if the ELT is listening, I know Eamon's in this time zone. No, I'm kidding. But yeah, that core unit is pretty highly anticipated when we announced it at NAB. So there isn't any additional news that I know of that I can share. But I do know they're working a lot. The dev team is working on that as a new product launch because it's pretty exciting stuff. The great thing about standards is there are so many to choose from. I feel like you've said that before. Hey, bird doggies. Oh, that's new. When is the release for the upcoming firmware for BirdDog Minis? That will be after the 4K converter lines. So I don't have a timeline on the 4K converter lines, but it will be after that for sure. So yeah, Studio and Mini, Dan had said on Facebook that they were promised to get moved to NDI5. So, yeah, definitely it is planned. I just don't have a day when. And we are also aware that they're getting a little long in the tooth in terms of the latest they were updated. So that I have been talking with engineering about that a fair bit. And so we know that they're due for an update and it will be done. But I know they're doing Silicon 2 right now, and then NDI5 for 4K converters, and then probably NDI5 for converters after that, for the rest of the converters after that. Almost all Dante speak AES 67 as well, probably because it's the audio standard for 2110. Interesting. I learn something new every day. See, NetHab, it's always good to have you around, man. You are worth the price of admission. That sentence doesn't work. Anyways, yeah, 150 subs. Pretty happy about that. Thanks, everybody. That I saw that happen yesterday, and actually I saw that today. I got an email that said somebody had subscribed, and I was like, wait, I think that means. And I like typed it up. Sure enough, 150. So, hey, if you haven't done so already, be sure to head over to birddogjon.tv and subscribe to that YouTube page. That is where everything I do out of this studio office and when I'm on the road, it goes to that site. So feel free to hit me up there and subscribe, like the videos, hit the notification bell, all that sort of good thing. Really appreciate it. That'd be great if you would join us over there and be a follower of the channel. Congratulations. Thank you, GoWeb. I think you have I owe you a portion of that thanks, because you are the hype man that isn't a BirdDog employee. So, and Balu, who is my regular hype man, he's out today. So, yeah, appreciate that. Do some Black Friday deals on controllers in India. I need to buy one. Play that celebration. Where is it? It's over here, right? Appreciate it, man. Yeah, I don't know what Black Friday deals they're going to hold over in India, but you can certainly send those suggestions into hello or help, and we'll pass them along to the marketing team, because they'll always listen to suggestions. And if you think that there's an opportunity over in India for controllers that would validate a sale like that, then I'm sure that they would listen to you. So you've been good to us so far, GoWeb. So I've got nothing but positive things to say. Hey, so in Central, can I schedule generators and routing? Digital signage applications make a generator show specific images and route it to an output on a certain date and time. So that would be like a scheduler. That's an interesting idea. I'm going to turn this playlist, by the way, and I'm going to jump over here and change these sources now that I'm not doing BirdDog Cloud stuff. I can return these sources to full full value, and hopefully they will look somewhat decent. This P110 that I have doesn't like to focus on me. It likes to focus on the black bar on the side here. So when it switches over to that image. All right, let's try this again. So can I schedule generators and routing? So you would need to somehow, there isn't a scheduler inside Central where it turns on at a certain time. It's either on or off. However, this is what I would suggest the fallback function for. So on decoders, there's a fallback function where when the source is live, it goes to that source. But when it's not, it falls back to something else, right? So we saw that demonstrated today in BirdDog Cloud. So the goal would be to set up your decoders or whatever you're showing on screens, if it's NEC with the SDM modules or whatever, when it's not showing live, whatever. So the thing I always gravitate towards is like you have a basketball court or an arena or something, right? And there's a game going on. Well, while you're producing it in vMix, the vMix output is live. That's the primary source on the BirdDog Flex out, okay? And that's on a TV. And so the primary source is vMix, output 4, NDI output 4. And that's the program. That's what you're watching here today is vMix output 4. And when I turn off vMix, that source disappears. And then it falls back to your signage. So that's the way that I see it working currently. There isn't a scheduler option inside Central, which is it's a great suggestion, by the way. But there isn't a scheduler option inside Central. And so you'd have to set it up with a fallback. And then what you could do is you could run Central for signage for a certain amount of time and then turn Central off. So that would be your primary source inside your decoder. And then the fallback could be like a logo slide. And so you could have, you could capture a logo slide of your company or your school or wherever the install is, the church, and have the logo slide up there by default as a fallback. So when the signage from Central, when you turn Central off, you don't want that, or you turn the generator off and that source disappears from the network, then it falls back to a logo slide of your choosing. So there's that option as well. You could even put an image file, I think, inside of generator. Ooh, there's an idea. So you could just turn off one and turn on the other, and then that source would disappear and the other one would appear, and then the fallback would be valid and show. So there are ways of doing it, but right now it's a little manual. So scheduler though, that's a great idea. I'm gonna talk to the engineers and just put that little bug in. Actually, I'll submit a feature request because that's probably the official way to do it. And we'll go down that road. So great idea though. Hey, this is that P400 up there. That's in full value. That's a nice shot. I like it because the wall is nice and blue, and I just think it looks nice, and I think it looks clean and nice image. So I'm really happy with this setup. And I've spent a little bit of time thinking again about this show. I think about you guys a lot, more than I probably need to. But I've been thinking about setting up the next time we do a studio, because I want to do something a little bit more official. Like it keeps growing and growing and growing, but I want to do something a little more official. And the next studio I do, I want to set it up where I can have people in, kind of like a podcast interviewing option. There's a bunch of different ways that people are doing this online right now. But I just like the simple arm with the microphone. And so the question is, what other microphone do I get? Do I get another RE20? That seems like a lot of money for an occasional guest. EV does make an RE320. And from what I've seen, it's, so this is built and made in the US, which is, I think, from what I can tell, one of the primary cost generators is that it's US built. Whereas if the 320 is, they say, built overseas, which brings the cost down a fair bit, by like $100 or over $100, which for a temporarily, for a device that might be used occasionally, maybe once a month, maybe. I don't know. I don't know what the deal is. I might make my bird dog guys and gal join me every now and then, and we'll do like get to know bird dog people. Um, but I'm really tempted to try the 320, which is a less expensive microphone. Now, I bought this one myself because I'm an audio guy and I like microphones. It's like one of the things that I spend unnecessary money on. Among other things, my wife would attest to. But microphones are like one of the things that I really like. And I've had various mics on this show. And, obviously the throw up against the RE20 is the SM7B, which is a little less cheap, a little less expensive. Sorry, it's a little cheaper, but it doesn't handle the proximity effect the same way that this one does. And this one essentially rejects it and does really well with sibilance, does really well with, outside noises and whatever. And doesn't require as much power as the SM7B does, which I thought was interesting. So, and this is a standard, the RE20 is a standard microphone in the industry. And it has been since the 60s. So I love it. I love this microphone, as you all know. But anyways, so I'm thinking about getting another microphone for the future podcast, videocast, bird dog experience. And I'm thinking about that 320. I'm also thinking about maybe just an SM7B because people are used to that, and it'd be good to have both options. But anyways, more on those thoughts later. Are there any options for something like Stream Deck controls for BirdDog comms and BirdDog apps? Currently, no. There are no Stream Deck integrations that I know of for comms where you can like turn off microphones or push to talk or whatever. Not to say they won't do something like that. I don't know, but currently there are no options for that. In BirdDog Cloud 2.0, there's a function called snapshots that can be called from Stream Deck. We created a simple plugin for that. Boom. Well, there you go. Plus, we're getting spam today, so I'm currently blocking people that are spamming the show. But I probably should jump over to YouTube and also report them there. So let me. I don't know which YouTube channel it's going to. See if I can find them. Go web. Good. Oh yeah, and I guess I could. What on earth, man? We're really getting spam today. But it's okay. We can just add them to the block list, and that goes away. Goes away with time. Okay, so it appears to be working. Stream Deck is able to tell YouTube, evidently, that this person is blocked. Awesome. All right. Well, I am thrilled to report that we have been streaming for 2 hours and 43 minutes again. It keeps happening. Okay, it's super easy to kill 2.5 hours with Jake. That guy, seriously, if you haven't met him, shaken his hand, you need to get over to a trade show ASAP and hang out with him a bit. Just wealth of knowledge. I mean, he talked about cloud today, but there are so many applications we have. There are so many products we have that he just can go deep dive into like that. And so it makes him a great sales engineer and a huge asset to the company. So I love hanging out with Jake. He's got lots to share. He's got a lot of cool use cases. Like he was saying, he was over at that theater and he was just like briefly messaging me on Teams and like all of the stuff that they were up to. And I was just like, holy cow, this is a huge integration of NDI, BirdDog gear, control, all of that stuff. And it's really cool to see that all kind of mapping out. And he's an integral part of those sorts of installations being successful. So if you don't know Jake, you need to shake his hand one day at a trade show. And he was over at IBC. They shipped him out because Eamon couldn't go or something. So anyways, they sent him over there. And then he was at NAB with us this year. Um, he used to do a lot of like BirdDog installations prior to being a BirdDog employee. He worked for a company and did a lot of like BirdDog gear installs, and so he was already well versed in a lot of this before he came over. But anyways, yeah, it's great to have him on board, man. Such a cool dude. And my sales engineers, you'd watched yesterday's show from Tom St. Clair over in Streaming Idiots / Eastern Shore Broadcasting. BirdDog Ian, who's one of the sales engineers, and Eamon, one of the owners and founders of BirdDog, were on that show answering questions with Tom's community, and so that was a lot of fun to see that kind of play out. But yeah, we've got a great group of people that work at this company, and it continues to grow, continues to get more and more. I think the depth of knowledge gets pretty deep. I need to have a couple of the channel managers here in the U.S., Monty and Robert, because they both come from backgrounds of technical integration. Monty worked for Barco for a long time and has really cool experience when it comes to integrating technology into everyday like use case scenarios. He sees the big picture and sees where we fit in, and so he's got a great wealth of knowledge there. And Robert, that dude can talk circles around me in terms of um even things like integrating audio. He's got a wealth of experience and knowledge from previous past employments, and listening to someone explain, here's the dream, and those two guys can spell out, all right, here's how we can fit in and help you actuate that. So I need to start having more of these BirdDog guys on the show. We've obviously got guys in other zones too. We've got, you guys know Robbie, he's been on the show. You guys know Phil, he's been on the show. Sebastian, he's in France. I've yet to interact with him on any sort of one-on-one level, but he's been at trade shows. If you were over at IBC, you would have probably met Sebastian or at least seen him. Jason, who is unfortunately sleeping when I'm awake, but he's in the APAC region. I love Jason. I met him over at in Melbourne when I was there in August, and yeah, he's just such a cool dude. Filippo, he's down in South America. Filippo has been working with South America is a different animal altogether because it's a different structure in how things are sold and how product moves around, and it's not like your traditional distributor retailer situation. So he's got a very unique situation where he's trying to move product in a totally different environment that's not even like how most of BirdDog is structured. And so Filippo is down in South America, and I got to hang out with him a little bit in Melbourne and talk about what challenges he has, and especially when it comes to support and a bunch of things with BirdDog. And so, look, we got a great group of people that work for this company, and we're growing like crazy. And if you haven't had a chance to really like meet anybody other than me, hit us up at a trade show. We go to several a year. Now that the bad infection is, I don't think it's gone, but certainly not hindering travel. So if you can sort out a way next year in 2023 to join us at any of the trade shows and meet us and shake our hands, and if you're somebody in the chat, for example, you want to come to NAB, I'll probably be at NAB. I think I will be. That's where I got sick the last time. But anyways, I'll probably be back there this year, and I don't officially know, but if you want to come and say hi to me, if you want to though meet some of the other crew, that's a perfect opportunity to do that and also see what else is going on in the industry. So it'd be great to have you on board and have you come and shake our hands. Anyways, I don't know necessarily why I went into that rant, other than I'm pushing this now to almost 3 hours. Thank you so much for coming along for this ride. I know a lot of you guys have been requesting to have more chatter about our offerings, and in particular with Cloud, and so I hope that you found today somewhat useful. Pray for me as I am a single parent for a couple of days. So my wife went out of town last night. We met up for dinner. We traded the kids off. They came in my truck. She picks them up from school usually, and so they got in my truck. And my wife went off to the other side of the state for a couple of days to attend a conference. And awesome. Good stuff. She's enjoying that, and that's wonderful. She needs to do more of that stuff. But it's me and the kiddos. And so I'm operating on less sleep than I normally do, and my alarms went off early today because I need to basically do all the things my wife does every morning and then do the things that and like get dressed. You notice I'm not wearing like much other than like a hoodie and a hat. So that's on purpose because I did not invest very much time in my own upkeep this morning. So yeah, the next day or two, she comes back tomorrow. We'll be busy with them. But I've really enjoyed hanging out with you guys, and I really enjoyed hanging out with Jake today. I think that was time well spent. So I appreciate that. Hey, how's it going, York? And I really appreciate that. Thank you. It's good stuff. Yes, GoWeb has met Jason, and he knows how awesome he is. And so Jason's such a cool guy, and yeah, he's a guy worth knowing too. I've yet to unbox my BirdDog Play. What is going on here? Naya has a cold, and so Daddy has to take care of things. Oh, gotcha. Well, all right, fair enough. Family first, my friend. But hopefully she starts feeling better. Sorry to hear that she's under the weather, but hopefully that will pass, and you guys will be operating at 100% again. In the meantime, guys, it is Thursday afternoon now, and so I hope that you are having a decent day and a great end to the week. We've only got one more day to go before it's the weekend, and so hopefully you have a little chance to recoup and recover as the week is coming to an end. I know not everybody gets the weekend off, and so if you're one of those that has to work, steady on, and we will see you back here on Tuesday at 11 a.m. for at least an hour, more than likely longer than that. But for at least an hour, thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it. And hopefully you found today useful. More on next week's programming as I figure that out. It's kind of, we go day by day around here, folks. It's not as well organized as it appears, and maybe that's obvious. So, but yeah, we're doing well. Steady on. We got another day to go, and then the weekend will be here. Jan, if you're still watching, safe travels, my friend, and we will talk soon. In the meantime, take care of yourselves. Look after each other. Be good to one another out there. And we will see you guys on Tuesday at 11 a.m. Eastern Time, right back here, BirdDogJon.tv. Take care. Thanks, guys.
Resistance is futile.